I missed it. Test said ready. Right. You ready, Rob? Okay. You have to press the button, Deb. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let the record show at 6:19. We are calling into order due to technical difficulties. Are you recording or playing?
That was on mine.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, that one should be recording, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Due to technical difficulties, we're having a late start, so we heard multiple people telling us that they could not hear. So we are trying to make an adjustment so that everyone can hear for their benefit. We apologize for any previous inconveniences or confusion. Please contact one of the board member or administration if you have any questions about any previous issues that board meetings discussed. All right. And welcome everyone online and in the room. Thank you for coming this evening. All right, could we have our roll call, please?
Mrs. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Gus?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Winkler?
Here.
Thank you. Let's stand for our invocation and pledge of allegiance, please. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day and this opportunity to come together and decide the business of the district. God, just watch over us and help us to clearly understand the issues put before us. There's many, and help us to make the best decision for our staff and students. Guard us and protect us. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Now we have the approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Okay, voting is open. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
All right, so under old business this evening, we have the second half of our plan for instructional learning options and start date. So I'm not sure if, Jennifer, if you and Cindy want to tag team here and...
I can start.
You can hear me?
First of all, this is the second leg of the materials you're seeing. What? Oh, sorry.
Maybe try it and see if she can hear you.
Oh, is she having trouble with me?
Well, she said Sarah, but I cannot.
Jason, can she hear Cindy when she's talking?
I just got a text that the audio was good. We're just going well, the mic is here.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Maybe if I take that out.
So I'm gonna, I don't know if that's my problem too. Yeah, but my person can hear.
What's going on?
We can put it on. We can put it on a chair.
Yeah,
Have a
roll it.
small table there and put it in the middle of the room.
Oh, gee.
We're good just that way. You might have to take it
Which way does it go?
that way.
Well, I'm gonna have to get it and pull it behind underneath the.
There, it's right there.
There
That goes.
Sir, he said I hear you all good. Okay.
All right. Let's try that again.
Okay, so now it's in the center of the room test. Can you hear us now or better or?
Good?
Good. Fish?
We're good.
Thank you.
Okay, so, first of all, this is the second leg of the piece of our overall opening plan. It has been a lot of work coming out of another set of committee members. They are made up of all kinds of stakeholders that are associated with our district, including board members have had a lot of involvement, a lot of teachers and OC and industry partners that we have in our community. So personally, I would like to say thank you to all of those folks for really being thoughtful in all of the decisions that they were trying to put on paper for us to look at as options tonight. I'd like to give a shout out to our own Mrs. Bohatch, is our facilitator for this committee, and we'll rely a lot on her tonight. There is also some pieces in here that came from Larry Kosnick. I'm assuming he might be on the Zoom call.
He's upstairs.
He's upstairs. And Larry's had a lot of input in here with this piece too, being our special education director. So I want to say thank you to them. I also want to give just a little bit of a floor to Rob, because him and the rest of his cabinet has been very involved in getting the final pieces of this all for us to be able to view tonight. But I'd like to give the floor to him and Jen, if they'd like to say anything before we start with the process tonight.
No, I would just like to thank all involved as well. I mean, I know there's been a lot of time involved, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of questions that needed answered, and we still don't have all the answers, and we may not ever have all the answers. This stuff that we're going to be putting before you this evening, the main thing we have to remember is it's got to be flexible. We got to be able to move one direction or another, or, so, because at any time, we could be told that we need to do this, or we need to do that, and our plan's got to be flexible enough that we're able to move up or down the ladder, if that makes sense. You have anything to add, really?
Yeah, I just say it's been a very challenging few weeks, probably pretty much all summer. We've worked really hard to come up with the best situation under a really not good situation. I mean, it's very tough to come up with those decisions and try to find the best in the worst possible scenarios. So I want to thank all the teachers that met, have provided input, filled out questions for surveys, even our staff members, bus drivers, custodians, paraprofessionals, cooks. They just have been really good about sharing their ideas and their concerns.
I just want to bounce off and summarize this piece. We have a lot of folks that I say work behind the drapes a lot to make good products for us. One of them is we have a communications team that does quite a bit to make sure language is readable for the community and our students and parents. And they're the last ones normally to get their hands on our documents. And then we have a legal team that's really been working on this to make sure that as law and things are changing, that at the last minute they're working with us, and they've worked very hard. So I'm very humbled and proud to have been a part of the process so far. So thanks to everyone. Not to take any more time, but because of the difficulty, and by the way, my Lord, who would have ever thought in our lifetime or even in a teaching career, I would have thought I would have been planning for a pandemic like this, right? So I have to give credit to everyone that I think we've done a good job with being thoughtful. So there may have been different ways to offer what we have in front of you, but this is how I think we're going to try to go tonight. We presented you articles tonight. There are kind of 4 sets of big articles that we want to look at. At the end, this is what we need to put all back together and be able to have a decision to share out with our community. First of all, we need a start date, and what you'll find in those articles is there's options in there. Our team's going to walk you through some of the rationales, the pros and the cons through all of that research that we've been doing. And then trying to align that to what's best for, we think, our community and our uniqueness. We have 3 plans that we'd like to put in front of you tonight, and they also have options under them. But when we walk away, we're looking for a plan A, B, and C, and then what those plans look like. Those plans then need to be leveled. When do we offer them? We've been kind of using the state's color guide of the counties and how many corona cases there are. And we would like to, when we have the plans and we walk away tonight, to kind of have some guidance of what model do we move into based on what kind of emergency our county is listed as. And lastly, when we walk away, we've got to put the whole plan together, and we want to know which one are we going to start on. And then from that point, we can move those into our buildings, and our principals and their teams can start taking this guidance and start planning for the next step. I think what I want to do is to give you just an overall visual here. I need to share with you that this is nothing more than a draft and a visual. And then there is a highly recommended plan that Rob's team would like to give tonight. A little bit of that's on this paper, but really this is a graphic. This is not for any purpose of publishing or anything else. It's I want you to see what, when we get through all these articles, what it should look like. So one across the top is we're asking for what will be the plan we start on. You're going to see schedules, what kind of teaching and learning happens in the schedule, what's the health part, and that was the last board meeting we were at. But really we're looking at a plan A, B, and C, kind of looking at what level, what color do they come in, and so that's all we're trying to end up with at the end of the day is this visual here. And then when we figure out what the team is willing to do, then we'll plug it into some graphics and get it out to the public. The highly recommended plan that we think we're trying to work through is a delayed start for the students, but starting our teachers on our regular approved calendar for this year. We would like to see a plan A, B, and C that is a 100% in-person plan. Our suggestion is that that plan be offered possibly at a no public emergency level, and that sometimes is shared as the green level. And remember what Rob said, we can move very flexibly and very quickly between the models. The middle model, B, we're looking at that being that yellow-orange kind of category, and that's a modified hybrid for us. And then a 100% remote learning, and that's when we start getting into the red and purple levels is what we were thinking through our research it should be. We would like to start on the Model B. The Model B modified had some options for you to look at, and we'll walk you through those tonight. So kind of what we were looking at. If there's no questions about the format tonight, I'll give you one example of how we'll start. Article 1 is about time, and it has 2 options under it. So the team will help work you through the rationales for what you're seeing in the options. We can work together then to see if there's any amendments or if one of these options you can select. And I'll turn some of that over if we're willing to, or if we're ready to start with Article 1. Article 1's time, and I'll turn this over to Jennifer, and Rob will probably tag in too, and maybe some of our online participants, Larry's on too.
So for our start date, we have students starting currently on September 1, that's a Tuesday. Teachers would be in the buildings and in regularly scheduled in service on the Friday and Monday before students come in. That's the calendar as it stands. Option 2 would allow teachers to be in the building for professional development, to get their rooms ready, to understand all the procedures, all the health trainings, the technology trainings that they're going to need to be able to present however they're going to present at any time during the year. So that would give the teachers a full week and a day to have team meetings, to work in their classroom, and prepare for this new way of learning and teaching.
Our date to move through it, or do you think we have to take a motion for like this piece of it? Is there options?
He has a recommendation, so if anyone has questions, I think they just need to ask them.
So Rob, if you want to give the recommendation from the team,
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation here would be to start on September 8th to give our teachers additional time to prepare for the whatever type of learning we're going to be moving into. Plus, you know, from everything you hear, I mean, it sounds like it's just a matter of time before eventually everything's going to go remote again, once everything supposedly spikes or whatever in the fall, but, you know, who knows? It could go either way. That's why we want to be flexible enough that we can move either way on this plan. But that being said, we would like to recommend that we start September 8th so that we do give our teachers additional time to prepare for blended/remote, be ready to go if and when that's necessary.
Rob, I heard someone ask along the way, if we start later, what's that gonna do to, are they gonna get their time in? But you said since we went to hours, the students are able to get their time in easier than.
We've had a pretty good cushion with most of our buildings. The only building I would say that would, we ever came close with was Swiss Hills. You know, if we have a bad winter, yeah, we may have some time that we would maybe have to possibly make up.
Which is teacher medicine in those days.
The other piece of that is the remote learning plan that the state has rolled out for this crisis is taking consideration that attendance piece, knowing that you may not be in school at whatever time, whether it's a shutdown or it's temporary quarantine of a building. And so that's how we're documenting. So if even for snow days, if we would have a really bad winter, learning could still go on. Assignments could still be going, and we would be counting those days. So it's looking into that piece of it and giving flexibility to districts.
More or less other methods of tracking attendance rather than being in person in your seat in the building.
So if the issue of going fully remote is more than likely a possibility based on what we're hearing, and I heard that OHSAA has already canceled or postponed scrimmages for the football and other. Seems like it's where it's going already. And as soon as school starts, I feel, my own opinion, it's going to hit hard, it's going to hit fast, and we're going to be. My question is, why wouldn't we just start remotely till we get through it?
So I'll help to facilitate articles. Very, very good question. If you wait till the very next article, we got a whole lot of rationale for it, and I can approach it if you still want me to, but I didn't want to muddy the waters up about the start
that's
date.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it for about a week or so. It's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. The governor's already saying it's coming, and now High School Athletic Association, and I think there's no chance, seeing the proximity, and they're going to require masks for games. You can't do that. That's a health risk. Somebody's going to suffocate. So with that being said, are we putting ourselves in a position to be in? I know you say you have a plan to be able to bounce back and forth, but it took a long time to get the remote learning going. I know from personal accounts that my daughter Maggie, and the special ed kids, was exponentially harder. And she needed that social, and I'm just giving you a personal view on it. And if we try to go back to school, and then we have to jump right back into it, I think we're going to waste weeks, possibly months.
So you have a very valid point that our teams really talked through. One reason why, and we're well aware we think we're going to be out. It's sooner than later, probably, if we're hedging correctly. But what we thought that is different from the fall till now is we want the students to have an opportunity to get to know the new teacher, however short that relationship can grow, knowing we're going to kick out. There's one more option here that we didn't put on here, but some of us working on the committees had talked about it. Some schools are saying teachers will start on September 1st, students will go remote for 30 days, and that's kind of letting the other schools that are going full-time be the guinea pigs in this situation and keep our, eyes on the situation and see how it spikes, and then make a decision to, move in a different direction. But we thought it was pretty darn valuable to be thinking about making that connection with your new teacher in that school year, getting your Chromebook, learning how the format might be for each of those teachers, for what remote learning is going to look like. And we were kind of really leaning towards, and this is getting a little ahead of the game, a hybrid model, so that the kids are getting a taste of here in the first couple weeks what remote will look like, and then that in-person relationship building with that teacher. That was the team's really strong point.
I talked to a lot of teachers across the district. They expressed, if we have to go to remote, like that time in the building with them first, so that we can not only build those relationships, but those procedures and how it's supposed to be turned in, and where the passing out the materials, all of those things. And from being in the classroom too. When we went out in the spring, you already knew those kids. They knew what you were expecting of them. Those procedures are already in place. And now we're talking about kids that are coming into a brand new teacher, or even going from 8th grade to high school. There's a big change. So I guess we're looking at trying to keep them in with the teacher as long as we possibly can, but because we know we're going to be.
There's an option you don't see in front of you, and you have the ability to amend. I don't know that it wasn't super popular with those of us working on it, but Bev, you highlighted it in some of our working documents about one of our pros to going after Labor Day, and granted, it takes 14 days after an event to incubate this thing. We were hoping fair would be over, Labor Day is out, and granted, the next day we come back to school. But waiting to get by the holiday. So we could bump from the 8th to the 14th to measure what happens after the holiday, and the fair's a little different now. But that might be something that you look at, maybe amending that a little bit. So you have some options here to work with. In helping facilitate this, if you felt more comfortable hearing about Article 1 and skipping on to the plans and then coming back to the date,
That might be.
it might be an option to do 2 tonight.
You good with that, Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good with that? Yeah, right with that, Rob?
Okay, so for the record, we're going to skip over Article 1 and come back to it. Article 2, of course, I'm missing a page. Is everybody missing a printed page?
Yeah, I don't have Article 2.
Oh, it looks like it's printed every other page.
Says Article 2, Model A, 100% person.
Yes.
It's at the bottom of the first page.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, so it printed funny. Okay, that's been happening to us all week. All right, so Article 2 is a Model A, 100% in-person learning. Really what we need from you on this model is, number one, is that one of our models we can do? I'm assuming we're looking at 100% in. Some kind of modified hybrid is Plan B, and C would be 100% remote. So in this one, this is one of the simpler ones to look at. What we are really looking for is if we go back to school face-to-face, in-person learning, at what level of the emergencies would you like to assign this to? Rob, do you want to do our...
Well, you're talking about the color code.
The color code.
Green,
That's really what the option
green, yellow,
is.
orange, or red. Yeah, I mean, so we're looking at option 1 or option 2. Option 1 would, if we're like level green, no public emergency, we'd be full-time, in person, in the buildings, 100%. Or if you look at option 2, you add level yellow to it as well.
Our team's suggestion was,
The option A, or the first Model A.
yeah, we're
Option
thinking
1.
there's no emergency there, no public emergency, and it's the traditional learning that you're used to seeing. face-to-face, 100%, life's back to normal. If I was to compare this to C is going to be remote, 100%, and we're going to ask you the same thing, and we're assuming we're going to be looking at the red and purple categories. Our team is looking at assign it to red and purple.
I think level green makes sense. Any other thoughts, board members?
My honest opinion, I think all or nothing, just go for it. Go 100%. If it spikes here, then we go back, have that secondary plan of remote learning like we ended last year. And, or if it's 1 or 2 cases, ride the storm out for a little while and see if it spikes worse. And if it does, I think you could set a percentage. And obviously you can't go into the hundreds, but maybe it's one person in this building, that building, is that really affecting the district? And we're right on, I think, my opinion, and nobody cares, but
We do.
I'm just saying in general, I don't know if we're just scared or if we should just try and go for it. Because it seems to be dwindling. It's obviously going to spike because people are getting back together.
Schools are starting.
Sports are ramping up.
So you have some really valid points. One reason why we're bringing this article to you now is it helps in our communications to the parents to know we will be going between some, up and down through some plans. And then number 2, making the point all in or not. I agree, that's probably the plan B in the middle for us. Unless you're just talking either go all in or C, all out and no hybrid in there. But we have some good valid points for going the hybrid route. So if you still have questions here, I think we would like to have guidance so we can produce something like this for parents. It's a communications about this is our goal, is to get into the green. But in the meantime, we need to keep kids in as long as we can until we figure out what happens when kids do go back to school.
My concern with going all in right now, and I have several, we have students in each building from such a wide area. Got one that just brings it in on a bus or in a classroom. And then there's a lot of students that go home to family members that have medical issues or elderly. So yeah, the kids might do okay, but what about the people they take it home to?
So we have 2 things. You made a comment about, well, what if there's just one kid here and one kid there, and I read that as maybe that's not too bad when, I think I'm reading you to say the levels are low. But when the child goes to school, now we're in a different situation, and that language will be coming probably at the next board meeting if we can get it. We're still waiting for some legal advice about someone, he's positive. I was his teacher. Does this class only go home for 14 days, or do we shut the whole building down for 14 days for deep cleaning? We don't have good language yet on that. So that kind of leads into her comments, and her comments are, but I wanted to answer you. You're going to find out that we're talking about those children, those families who determine they're a little higher risk have a remote learning option and a virtual online learning option. Those will be present in the plans for those guys. So if you know you're in a high-risk family situation, you have options. But your comment is very valued. It's just we don't have the answer yet, and we're well aware of it. But because we keep asking, we keep pushing, like, what happens if one kid shows up? What happens to the building? Like, what part do we shut down? How do we track it? How do we clean? How many days are we out to clean the building again? Those kinds of things. We don't have it yet.
Yeah, I just like option 2, level green and yellow. Going full-time.
Level green and yellow?
Level green and yellow. Starting out going full-time.
Now, once again, we could walk you to the next article, because the next article has a lot of pieces in it. or you can act on this one. It's up to you. You give us direction how you want us to move.
Can I say one thing? Lisa?
Sure.
I'm worried about special needs kids. You know, they need instruction face to face, not remote. And also, I'm worried about some of these children at home, their lifestyles and all that. At least when they come to school, they have a teacher or someone that cares about them, and they know what's going on. This way remote, we teachers that don't know what's going on.
Once again, really super valuable. So this is what you're going to see tonight. We were hoping the ODE, our feelers out there are telling us within the next 6 days now, we should get some more guidance for this department. We've worked with Larry, and what we wanted to do tonight is give you an article closer to the end that lets families feel comfortable that we are aware of special populations of students need more one-on-one, and there might be a little bit exceptions to them in any of these plans that we end up in, A, B, or C, because the research does show that they need more interaction with their teachers than some other may be able to be able to survive in a different model and be successful. Tonight, the article that you have, if Larry's on, and we can hear him, he can address that. But that was the idea for the article in here, was to let families in those situations know that they will be a part of the plan. But ODE was releasing stuff in the next couple of days, so it will probably be on the next board meeting with a little bit more strength in the piece.
So sort of addressing that
We're addressing that where we know it,
Yeah.
for how we could address it today, knowing that there will be more guidance. Now, we are saying, whatever plan we're in, we know there's some specialty Larry, are you still on?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to address any of this for us?
Well, I would just like to say I agree with Mr. Winkler. I think, the special population, can you hear me?
Yes.
The special population is going to be a challenge, but I agree these students really need to be in class. I mean, I feel that even if we go to a 100% remote learning and the teachers are in the building, I still feel those students should go in. And until we get to a higher level where the state is shut down, I just feel that they're not going to have the capability at home to do full 100% online. I think we saw that in the spring. I think it was a failure for many of the special ed students. They just didn't get online. They weren't capable, or they didn't have access to the internet. So I think,
correct me if I'm wrong, but even if we went to a blended or whatever, we could still have that group of students come in rather than alternating days or 2 days here, 2 days out or whatever. We could have that group of students come in every day. Am I correct in saying that?
yes, yeah, I agree.
They're smaller groups most of the time anyway, so we can provide those services still. And the families with special population students still have other options if they're not comfortable with sending their student, which is the remote and the virtual online, which still has support of our teaching staff and our OTs, PTs, and all of the categories of instructors.
Yeah. Hey, Cindy, excuse me. The other part of this that we have to consider is all of these special needs students. Some of them have service providers such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language. So they wouldn't get that other than maybe through a remote format. And that's very difficult to do physical therapy through a remote format. We have done it with speech language that has been fairly successful, but we have to consider that too. And if those students were there in the classroom, they would be able to get that from their service providers, because the service providers are going to be reporting to work just like the teachers would be.
Now, we do, I can't tell you a timeline tonight unless Linda can. or tests, which he's running our equipment tonight for us, but we have our telehealth services. That doesn't take care of everything, but, we have seen good results when we were putting a grant together for telehealth for like speech happening. If the student has the ability to do it from home, some of that therapy could, some kind of alternative where a couple of days is remote, that could possibly still happen through internet, but you have to have connectivity, and I don't know the timeline, but we are putting those things together now. The grant has been given to us. So, it's a pilot.
So under yellow, we have to be 6 feet apart, right?
We do everything but green. Green is there's no public
So
emergency.
we don't have the space to be 6
Correct.
feet apart and go 100%.
Now, I want to point out, if we bring everybody 100% back with our face covering guidelines, they would have to wear a face covering all day long, because there's no, there would be very few times that the students would be able to be 6 feet apart. I won't say no, but there is very limited time. It could be 6 feet apart, they would pretty much have to wear a face covering all day.
And some of our buildings that are a little crowded, we'd be spending a lot of money on plexiglass that we may not be able to get a hold of, or dividers, and, because they're at that 3-foot mark now, and the two crowded buildings, correct me, are the two elementaries, Woodsfield and River.
But for our special populations that
Yeah,
Mr. Winkler was concerned about, we can still bring them in
Yeah,
daily.
yes. But Bev, if we're all 100 in, we have some serious issues that I'm not sure we can completely solve. Well, we can with money. You can with money.
You can with money, but the point of being 6 feet apart, the point of kindergartners wearing masks all day, not gonna happen. K through probably third grade, kids are gonna be pulling them off, each other, and there's no way they're gonna be 6 feet apart, like you said, in those particular buildings that are, a little more crowded anyway. So, I guess I was thinking in terms of if the kids, if the parents want, there's gonna be parents that say, I don't want my kid to wear a mask. Is that jeopardizing somebody else, or is that their right to say?
Well, so there's this is stuff we can't present yet, but there's good support in the state to get language for us about, if someone chooses not to follow the school's protocols for safety, that we have options, and that is remote and virtual learning for them. We still can provide their education. So, I think that language will come. Not to mention, you currently already have it in your policy if someone doesn't follow, dress code, and, there's another policy in there. We already have the ability to put them on a remote learning plan.
I agree.
We don't want to go there.
Yeah, I agree with 100%.
But they have options if they don't feel comfortable with some of the protocols that are being talked about. May I suggest this, President Smith? There are a lot of questions about the very next article. Maybe we want to look at that article. That a lot of the rationale and the pros and the cons that come out in the conversation, and then maybe it'd be easier to look at what you want to do with the other two plans.
Okay.
So,
Keep in mind that these are going to be fluid. We
Yeah,
may
right.
be in one, and we are not going to be in it all year. They start out this way, and we can move, then depending on how things are going.
Right.
And assessing the situation, so it's to be fluid, not locked in for the entire year.
Can I ask one thing, what is the ultimate one way that we can do it to stay the same the whole time?
hybrid.
Hybrid?
Well,
No.
unless we go to a purple or red,
100%
but,
out.
well,
I'm just saying.
remote's the one you don't
Yeah,
need
no,
long.
Some of the
understand
kids
what you're
need to be in the
saying,
building.
I feel like we're gonna do this for the whole year, and I think that's a terrible way to educate children. What's the one way we can do it, guaranteed the kids can get the best education for 180 some days?
Well, the team is gonna suggest hybrid, and maybe, if you can hang on to that question and let us give you the pros and the cons, we might lead you to thinking that how we came about coming up with thinking the hybrid was the best model, because as Jen and Rob have both said, there needs to be a, relationship built with the teacher and the instructor right in the beginning somehow, because it's not like last year.
I understand.
We are really trying to hone in on not having more achievement gaps happening. We want to shrink that. We've been working hard as a district to do that anyway. Now we got the pandemic. And we saw that last year when all of a sudden we closed our doors and no one had remote taught before. So all of a sudden we had to shut down for 2 weeks to get everything going, to get it back out to the kids. So one of the big things that we thought was the hybrid model that helped us was the fact that, well, if we're in the middle, we're already prepared to go either way. It's a lot easier to go back to traditional. We thought if we started at the face-to-face in person, one of the biggest things that was going to happen is not all of us on our team would be ready because we thought we'd stick with that. Just logic, we'd stick through that for the rest of the year or long into the term. And just looking at it realistically, but if some of our population of instructors was thinking that way, then here we got a 2-week gap to get ready to go remote, and that was the gap we were trying to not achieve. So let me set up what you're looking at, and then we'll turn it over to these guys to help with the pros and the cons. You have 2 options under this hybrid model. In essence, option 1 says the hybrid model is identical for all grades K through 12. So this 2-3 model, and I'll let them explain it to you, is going to be the same for everyone. Big question is, do we still have the space? And we don't know that until we really get registration numbers in here once the plan rolls out. So when we talk about flexibility, we might have to adjust again. Option 2 is a modified hybrid that allows for the younger grades to have the most contact with their teachers in person, and then you start to see it dwindle down into the high school, how much in-service is happening for the students. It's more remote. So you have two options you're looking at. This is probably where the biggest conversations are going to happen tonight, and we welcome a lot of conversation, questions and concerns that you have. So I'm going to let, unless Rob's dying to do this, but Jen's really got a handle on this. Maybe you guys can tag it and walk us through the pros and the cons.
I got one question before you start. When you say we're going to alternate days, are we going by the alphabet or last name or what? How are you going to do
I
this?
think we got to get a registration sheet out and figure out who we're working with, because
The numbers.
Yeah.
the numbers and families, like
Okay.
you got a 5th grader and a 2nd grader, we might try to get you on the same day to ride the bus together. Those kind of.
What I'm saying, for 3 in a family, and then 2 of them go here and 1 the next day, that's going to...
No, we don't
We're
want that.
trying not to do that.
We want to work with our buildings, and a family is going to go the same day.
Okay.
Yes.
That was one of the big considerations, is being mindful of the families that maybe have an older child that's watching the younger children at home, and if they're in school and the younger children aren't, who's going to be watching that child or those younger children? So trying to keep the A group and the B group by families, by residential, because now we can put more students
By bus
by
route?
bus routes together, so there's a lot of logistics. But we also have to look at the numbers, and I know that isn't just by building. For example, Skyview, Woodsfield Elementary, and Monroe Central, and Swift Hills need to coordinate. So we've got to look at that whole big picture, who we're bringing in. And we've got to also make sure that we don't have a lopsided group. Maybe you've got a class, but there's 25 kids coming in on this day from this bus route in that grade. So how do we make that more dispersed so you don't have those large classes? So option 1 is looking at all K through 12 is on an alternate day. So group A, however we end up defining that, group A would come on Monday, Tuesday. They would go and do remote learning on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That doesn't mean it has to be an internet connectivity, but that's what they're working on at home. They could be viewing videos that have already been uploaded. They could be doing homework and assignments and reading, preparing for them when they come back. Group B would come to school on Thursday and Friday. Their remote learning would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday would be professional development for our teachers, giving them the chance for a whole day in the building to get things shifted from Group A to Group B, planning, preparing, recording videos, attendance, making calls, all of these pieces that to be really tiring to them because it's so different than we've ever done before. So giving them an entire day Wednesday in the building, and it's also going to be a deep clean day. And that's why we went back and forth on how we divided the groups and what days they attended for Group A and B. When it comes down to the health piece of it, we need that deep clean between the two cohorts. Now, in model, or option 2, this is where you get a little creative. This would be trying to get those younger students in the buildings more often. So K through 4, looking at bringing them in 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then 5th through 8th grade, having them in as a hybrid model, 2 days in, 3 days out, which would be similar to what the first option was for everybody. And then 9 through 12 being 100% on remote learning, but bringing them in for an orientation, bringing them in for one-on-one tutoring, hands-on laboratories, practicums, assessments, career tech. There's a lot of exceptions to that, and at any time, teachers in high school could schedule appointments or schedule small groups to come in person. But thinking behind that is, if we can free up some space in the high schools, then we have room to shift some of those classes so that we can spread out more social distance, and then kids aren't wearing a mask all day long. They're in small groups because roughly 8 to 9 kids are fitting in a classroom. When we get to some of the bigger classrooms, like kindergarten, we can get about 13 at 6 feet apart. Anything other than that, now we're starting to require masks all the time because they can't keep that 6 feet apart. Questions on that?
I just have one comment, and I've asked this question, everyone's tired of hearing it. But I didn't get time to Google today after work before I came, trying to see what the governor's orders are, because everything I've read, with the exceptions, does not accept wearing them in public buildings. It doesn't say if you're 6 feet apart inside. It says if you are outside, you don't have to wear it. So we need to get clarification.
Well, I heard the governor's, one of his Thursday day speeches, and saying we didn't have to wear them in those buildings, said K through 12 was strongly suggested that they wear them. So.
But I'm talking about the mandate that started last Thursday.
Yeah, it's,
So that was different than the previous.
Our legal team supported the language of strongly recommended. So, so they applauded us for putting strongly recommended in there.
Yeah, but I think what
She's saying is you want to follow that, or we're going a little bit more stringent than what it said.
No, I'm just saying, his new order that started last Thursday, I didn't see anywhere, I haven't went on and read the order. I've read the coverage of it. And it says if you're socially distanced outside, you don't have to wear them. And it says you don't have to wear them inside a residence. But it doesn't say inside public buildings, if you're 6 feet apart, you don't have to
Well,
wear
what
it.
I'm
So what you're
saying
saying is if you're 10 feet apart, you still have to have the mask on.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I want that, I'm just saying we have to make sure we're following the order. That's the only thing I'm saying.
we're
So we
thinking
need to find out.
I thought they got contested with Walmart and Target now about saying that they was wanting us to wear a mask in their building. I thought they had they contested, and the law says that we don't have to do that.
Well, I think there's allowances if it affects your health, or, I don't know the answer to that.
I just heard that they got contested, and Walmart and Target and all of them illegal. I'm telling you, you can't come in without. I know I walked into Walmart over the weekend, and nobody said nothing to me.
You have a mask on?
No.
I know, but if we don't go by the order and then someone gets sick, then what?
Well, I may be misunderstanding how you've been saying this to me, but we can always go more restrictive than what the order said. So by us saying we're gonna wear the mask inside, does that mean we're more restrictive than what your understanding is of his order?
I think in the transition, like right now, we're wearing masks in the transition, when they sit down at their desk with their social distance, they're taking them off. And I think what she's meaning is we need clarification to make sure that we can take them off still. Because the
Oh.
governor's order sounded like,
They have to stay on while they're inside.
Regardless
Oh,
of the-
matter what.
I apologize, I
It's
didn't
okay.
misunderstanding you. For some reason, I think I've heard this 3 times of you saying, when you're in a government building, you don't have to
No,
wear
in a
them. I don't
public
know why
building.
I'm hearing that.
Oh, in a
In
public building,
building,
yeah.
you don't have to wear them, that's what I keep
No.
focusing on.
He's saying you do.
I'm sorry, I've misunderstood you 3 times. Just throw something at me.
third time's the charm, right?
Yeah, I got it,
Okay,
thank you,
so,
thank
Can
you.
we check on that, like
Yeah.
specifically?
And that may change in 2 weeks from now.
Right, he could drop it.
Yeah.
So there's, I Googled it,
Okay.
and there's a news site on here, and it says mask must all times in at an indoor location that's not a residence, outdoors when unable to keep 6 feet social distance for those not in your household, when waiting for riding, driving, or operating public transportation, taxi, cars. That's all it says.
But I think that
That's-
before, when we
that was
talked
on
about
the
this,
news, though.
we were thinking there was an education piece to that language.
Yeah, I don't,
I'll keep looking.
I keep saying, or I keep hearing from the folks we work with, that they're being promised that something comes in the next 7 days, which was a couple days ago, so
So maybe that will come.
give us a few days. They keep
Hopefully.
saying we have to be flexible. And I'm believing them, because at the last minute on both of these last special board meetings, at the 11th hour, a change came through, so.
Don't you think that, I mean, the definition of a mandate is basically a strong recommendation.
Yeah.
It's not punishable by any type of.
Correct.
That's what
Law.
I'm saying about Walmart.
Right.
So-
My point to all this is, yeah, I think the governor's kind of protecting himself by saying, I
Yeah.
mandate the mask, but it's so unspecific as to how, and if they're gonna put it on us to police it, so to speak, and like Bev says, even though you're inside, I don't think it's gonna work very well, because we're struggling now trying to tell, how are kids
Yeah.
K through 4 gonna keep that thing on and try to talk and spitting and sneezing and coughing and everything else?
Well, if you can't cough or sneeze, you gotta go home.
You gotta go home. But I think that if you can maintain the 6 foot, but again, we're back to the same thing, every time we talk about something, is if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. The 6 foot, the mask, the bus ride, the lunch, everything's gonna come into play. I don't think, you're gonna have to make a decision and roll with it, and, but I mean, that's a very valid point, Bev, as far as, you know, what do you do based on what the governor says?
I agree. We're keeping our ears open. Yeah.
And like Rob says, it can change 3 times in a week.
We could make a recommendation and have a plan tonight, and next week,
Before I get it
we're
printed.
back at it.
Well, that's why we got 3 plans, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Because if he
Keep
shuts
it
everything
flexible.
down, we just go to remote.
right.
Yeah.
And while we were talking here earlier, I got information that says Toledo shut down until August or October 1st.
I think it's gonna happen in all the major cities.
Yeah, the big 8 have already gone to saying the first semester is just automatically remote. I did see one of them go automatically to remote all year. They just
Really?
up and, but they didn't have that in the first plan that they released. It was not that way, and then all of a sudden, they up and,
A larger city, you're saying?
yeah, the big 8s are like Columbus, Toledo, Dayton, Cincinnati.
My brother lives in Cincinnati, he told me that they're going back on a every other day schedule type, like a hybrid type thing, as of now. He's right in the heart of all that, so,
Yep.
with the, obviously, a huge
My
population.
family's over there, and depending on which suburb you're in, they're pretty much that way. So folks, you have 2 options here, the full hybrid that's identical. We do question whether we can do it, because if everyone comes back, we might not have the space we need. Option 2 is that modified hybrid across the grade levels, but also there's one more piece that you see at the top. Our team's suggestion is in this hybrid model, we'd like to do it under yellow and orange, meeting some of the comments that Greg had said earlier about we're not wanting to do the ebb and flow on everything, but if we stayed in the yellow and the orange in the hybrid model, we think we would be okay. And our overall goal, every time we answer a question when we were working on this, was what protocols can we put in place to try to stay in school as long as we can? And that we've always gone back to that, like when we made a recommendation, go a little bit more stricter, hoping to stay in longer, keeping everyone safer longer.
Can you go over the two other options besides going to school?
Well, the
remote and the virtual, what's
Okay.
the difference is?
So, in all of our models, all of our families have an option to do remote or virtual learning, virtual online learning, if they don't feel comfortable. So remote learning is a whole combination of things that our assigned teacher of records provide our students in a remote location. It can be their textbook and copied workbooks and worksheets, and it can be taped lessons, it can be live streaming lessons, it can be anything they can think of how to get that student to learn just at a remote site. The virtual is online 100%. And I'm going to she's worked more with the contract with them, but if you want to explain what the online option is, and it does have some rules to it.
Right. So that was what you approved last, the Blue Sky Academy contract. That's another avenue that parents can choose. We also have our peak fuel education that we usually use for high school students. That's another avenue too, should they decide in any one of our models that they're not sending their students to school at all. And we want parents to have that choice. What I'm getting already is calls about homeschooling and going to online community schools. Now those students are no longer part of our district. They don't receive funding, they're not our district, they don't get services if they're special ed, no therapy, nothing. They're none ours. And we really want to retain those students. They are our students, so we're offering yet another piece. We can, for those, let me back up for a minute. For those programs like PEAK and Blue Sky Academy, Edgenuity, parents, the families must have internet in order to complete them. And we know that's a big barrier. So we can still provide remote learning through our teachers and our curriculum to those parents and students who want to stay home. But until we have them make that decision, we don't know what those numbers are right now.
So let's go a little deeper into this conversation. So she made the comment that if you're going to take one of those options, you have to have internet. So we're working really hard. Some of this project that Tess and Linda O'Connor's leading a little bit, and Lydia was very involved in it with the telehealth part, is to make sure we can get connectivity in our county. We're seeing the Appalachia, Ohio, whatever that plan is. I'm not saying it right. My understanding is, from talking to some IT folks, that we've been seeing a lot of towers go up around here, helping with some of that. We have our hotspots that we put out in our parking lots, and that's a model that's kind of called coffee shop. If they want to take that option, they might have to drive to the parking lot to get that hotspot so they can do that. That it's there, but that's difficult to do. You have to drive to the parking lot or wherever those hotspots are. I think Tess is also, she comes in here as possibly trying to work with a company or something, I don't want to speak for her, about the possibility of trying to get hotspots in family homes. But I'm sure there's legal pieces to that. I'm sure companies have to agree to that. I'm sure the schools having security with that is an issue too. But we're trying. There's a couple other things to know about these two programs. Number one, if you do the Blue Sky Academy, we are working with our ESC partners to deliver that, and a student, if they choose to do that, has to stay in it until the semester mark before they decide to if they didn't want to do it and they wanted to bail out, they can't do it until the semester mark.
But then do they, with the Blue Sky Academy, they get a coach
they get a learning coach, they get a mentor with them that is from the ESD that is going to be in contact with the students, monitoring their progress and reaching out at any time. So that takes some of the burden off of our teachers who are going to be doing a lot of different things this year.
I thought I read 24/7 tech.
Yeah, there is a 24/7 text.
With that virtual.
Right. Now, it's not for everyone, but it is an option.
And it is free to the student, the
Right.
family, not completely free to us, but, free to the student. The other option, the, peak is, you know, we've been delivering peak for some time, and then that coach and instructor is our teacher of record, so they're still connected with our staff.
So Lydia offered this information, she texted it to me. Innovate Ohio added a team member to the pilot project last month. The goal is to move forward with community access to the internet. However, we don't have a date yet. We have an Ohio State University consultant who will begin next month and hopefully expedite this portion.
Thank you, Lydia.
Yeah. And that's exciting that
I
they're.
didn't know she was, well, I can't see everyone
she's
on the
not.
call.
Yeah.
Does that help with,
Test.
there's Tess, yeah, Tess has been working on this project too. We don't know about the telehealth and the connectivity pilot program. Like, we don't know where we're at to help students who want to possibly take online virtual coursework with us versus coming into school and they don't have connectivity at home today. Like, how close are we getting to the point of being able to help more of these students that don't have, or in the dead zone?
Actually, our ITC site at Marisa is working with, all their districts that they service, but they, have put out that the governor had, set aside $50 million for matching funds. If we want to help, if we want to put money out there, the state will match our funds, for helping disadvantaged students get internet at home. So that's what we're working on right now to see what we can procure on that front. In the meantime, I'm working with Chad Stevens to see if we have survey responses back on who does or does not have internet access. And if they have cell signal, or even if they even came back to say they couldn't even get it on their own. So I'm going that route to see what we've got on responses that way, if available. If not, we may be putting out a survey to get that real quick. But we're working hard to try to get those kids that don't have internet that are disadvantaged with the funds for the governor.
Thank you, Tess. I feel like she's very humble because her team has been shrinking the amount of kids in our district that don't have that connectivity ability, and she's hustling. So, and her team, I catch them in parking lots at 8, 9 o'clock at night, so they're doing a good job.
Changing out audio.
I know there's been a lot of questions about the other options. Did we help you out with those? Bev, at one time you had asked me, and I haven't gotten back to you about, couldn't students stay in for a quarter and leave? There's a really good reason behind why they need to stay into the semester mark if they decide it's not for them. It is really hard to give them credit for curriculum learned when you do it on such a short period of time and trying to align it back to the curriculum that would be equal in school. But if we get into a semester mark, it's a lot easier to say, you got a half a year's worth of credit there, and we can put you back in here. Probably the same amount of material is being covered in the first half, but in a different order, possibly. So that's working with our ESC partners, saying it would be very difficult to give that a good credit for a student who didn't stay in very long into the program.
My only concern was if they get through the first month and they're really struggling.
Well, they got a lot of coaches and things I think will make.
But I mean, if it just totally wasn't working
No,
out.
not for them.
I think
I wouldn't want to
situations like that would be a case by case.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And the team's really good about that too. Well, folks, we might as well, before you make any decisions, talk about the one more of the articles, and that's Plan C. It's a lot like the first one, except instead of being in school, it's 100% remote. And the piece we'd like you to make the decision for us is where would you offer that at? We suggested a team, correct me, but red and purple.
Red and definitely purple, yeah.
That's where we'd like to be at 100% remote. We feel like this county has low incidence. We feel like we might not have to go to that. We keep all of our protocols in place. We're hoping we stay in that hybrid model. To answer Greg, you know, where can we stay the longest? We're hoping that we want to go towards green, but we're hoping, realistically thinking about it, we can stay in yellow-orange for a long time here.
You say hybrid, but back to Mr. Winkler's concern was there's going to be certain groups of students that will be
with those exceptions for special population. We also have tried to put in here that one-on-one appointment, you know, when, more like a college model where the student and small groups of students could make arrangements with teachers that need more help to meet on some of the days when remote learning is happening for most of the class. And that would be really probably a more used model in that high school model if we do the modified hybrid, where the high school students are on remote.
Like you said, the high school students that need the extra help aren't gonna be on 100% remote.
Correct. You know what, while we're at it, I saw a lot of questions about Swiss Hills. Swiss Hills is a little bit unique because those students in their laboratories that get their industry credentials, for instance, cosmetology, have a lot of hours they have to put in before they can actually even set for their license. So the team that's out there has been working on the modified block. That's what they're going to have to work on to be able to get students to get those credentials. So they're thinking some kind of model, a schedule, and you'll see it when they kind of get some guidance here tonight. A big blocks of times, for instance, like the cosmetology students and maybe the auto body students come in, split the class so they can social distance. But they come in for a big block of time one day, and then they're doing their academics the rest of the time, while a different career field comes in and does a big block of their laboratory. And that's how, you know, they're planning on doing it out there. So all their academics would be done remotely. All of their practicums and their hands-on part would be done in school. We think that model might work for courses like chemistry and AP courses and physics that most of the time have a smaller population anyway, but need that hands-on to do the laboratory part. But we were thinking, give that management practice to each building and those teachers to make that schedule for that, I'm going to call again, a special population. The last article you have in front of you. Number 8, or no, I'm sorry, there's more articles than that. Sorry. After the plan, well, actually, the other pieces aren't associated with the plan. So maybe we stop here and you make decisions about this. And then we can move into the other articles. The very last article, 8, is about putting the whole plan together and which one are we going to start on. But there's a couple before you get to 8. So I think this is a good place to stop. I think we can turn it over to you, and then we're available for questions. All right, you guys want to talk about the start date?
Well, I kind of like September 8th, but it's the day after Labor Day. And if you have people they got together and then they come into school, we might be out sooner than, I don't know. I mean, you don't know what to do. You wish you had a crystal ball.
Well, I particularly like the part that it gives the teacher the opportunity to plan, and the September 8th one. I think they're kind of really hoping for that.
Well, we look at what we surveyed families, there was over 70% that said they were okay with the September 8th start too.
The families.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure we gave them any later dates, did we?
No, we just gave them regular and
September 8th.
Now, one thing good about if you bump the kids to the 14th, kind of got that 2-week window in there. And you'll have to tell me, Rob, if you think we've got the hours to do it. But one thing good is we've got 2 solid weeks of those teachers working to get us where we need to be when those kids come in.
That'll be pushing the hours.
So,
I mean,
so
if we
that's
have-
the negative.
What if you had the kids in the first week to get their devices
No.
and their passwords and everything, and then you did some remote learning that second? You know, you started that, and then brought them in maybe on the 14th to try to get away from, because, I mean, it's, you know, there was the get-together in Wetzel County that got how many?
I've seen that model with some schools that we've looked at, where they brought them in for orientation, sent them back out for a couple weeks with remote, and then started their plan.
Just see if something would kick up.
Yeah, they wanted to get their devices, their codes, their stuff in their hands, meet your teacher, send them out for this very same reason, depending on where they started in the year, and then bring them back on whatever model they were looking at.
But probably whoever's gonna get together on Labor Day is already getting together anyhow, so we can probably.
And if you push it back to the 14th,
Could be
you're only talking 8 days, you know?
rather than risk of shutdown across the state too.
Right. I'm okay with the 18th, or the 8th.
All right. What do you think, Jerry?
I don't know, I wanna get the kids back in school. I think everything I've been reading is we gotta get them back for their education, but also their social skills. They're losing their social skills, they're laying out so much. I'd like to get them back and see what happens, you know. I'm all for putting them in class, and if it works, it works. If not, we can always shut it down.
So how about the start date, though?
I'd say September 1st.
What do you think, Greg?
I'm good with the 8th, and I like Bev's suggestion of possibly going maybe remote the second week to see how things go, but I know that maybe that's not an option, but definitely the start date.
I don't know that we really talked about it. Isn't it in here about 150% the first week for?
For orientation and safety training, some of the protocols you passed on the first one, but also if we're going back, remember, capacity is a problem for us, so also that gives us a chance to still social distance. So that first week, is kind of having to split the group so we can get.
We said 50% capacity of the building. That's up to the building to decide how they're gonna bring the, for that orientation type, if we're just doing one week of orientation.
Kind of how school goes anyway, you know, sign your books, figure out the course syllabi and those kinds of things. But there's a piece we don't have today. So we moved through today, we haven't been able to put out a register your kid for school application to figure out how many kids are we dealing with. If we lose enough of, I'm not saying I want the population to be gone, but what I'm saying is, if there's a doable amount of students who have already determined they're doing the remote or the virtual that makes us enough space in the buildings, then we might not need the 50% capacity. But we don't know that yet. We're having an assumption of 100% of our kids are here, we're gonna need the room. That was the decision for the 50% capacity.
Well, they're gonna have to come in to get devices anyhow.
But they might be able to go 100% that first, right out, I don't know. I just,
If
we don't know how many kids
a
we
lot
have.
of them going virtual, or,
And honestly, when we talk about putting some bumpers up here for the, like, I think Casey's here, like our principals, Casey might have more students choosing to do, remote and, virtual online than maybe River does. So he might be able to not have to do the 50% capacity right out of the chute, because he might already be at 50% capacity, like Powhatan. But then River, they're gonna have a lot choose that option to be able to have the room. And so they might need some flexibility to get those kids in and still social distance, manage the population. Woodsfield might be in that same situation, not being able to do it.
Woodfield would be.
Rob, could you grab the phone and move it up? I can't get out of it, but a couple people were telling me, like, I can't hear Jerry, so I think if we just move it up this way. I think that's just how it works. How long you
I don't want to
shout.
pass my, but flip it around. I'm refrain.
Lauren, what do you think about this?
I'm fine with you.
You're fine with the 8th? And I'm not sure, like, do you want to wait till the end and us make a motion on the end, or do you want to make a motion each part, or is consensus
That's
good?
It's up to you how you want to move through. We're just here to support keeping it organized, but.
Can we do each one individually, or does that have to be as a whole?
That's
Based on how it's,
We don't settle.
I would suggest, if you think you want to do them as an article, someone make a motion which option you want, maybe? Or even with an amendment on it if you wanted it.
Okay.
I'm just reading in, discussion and approval of the Switzerland, Ohio local school district restart reopening plans of the 2021 school year as a whole. So does that include everything as a whole? Or?
Yeah. If you wanna do it as a whole, I can list, like, as you go
What the
through them,
options
I can
are.
list the options, and then you guys vote on.
Okay.
Can you do it per?
I can, but there's gonna be different resolutions for different, I mean, I don't know how many, if there's a limit on how many resolutions per motion you can do or not, but you can make different ones here, I just don't know if there's a limit.
Can I ask you a
Probably
question,
good
Rob? Did all our surrounding districts, did you look at their plans?
Yeah. A lot of them, well, I know Jennifer and I talked
Yeah.
about a majority of them. Yeah, a lot of them are going 100% in.
That's what I'm saying. So if
But our thought on that is, they're gonna be coming back out 100% remotely sooner rather than later.
You also have the fact that you got, most districts are high school, elementary. We have, how many buildings?
Multiple,
we got
9.
And in some cases,
one campus.
One campus, right.
But I mean, did you ever think like some of these kids might open and roll over there?
Oh, yeah,
To go
yes,
there.
we had that discussion.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yes.
that's the reason why I want to get started.
Yeah.
We had that discussion yesterday.
Mhm.
That's one reason why I think we ought to go back as soon as possible.
Well,
I'm
I
not
totally
against the
agree.
8th, I'm not against the 8th, but I just think we need to get the kids back in. And if it don't work, it don't work, but I'm afraid if we don't jump on it, we might be losing out.
I do think, thinking of myself as a parent, that we're yellow. Some of them are bumping orange in those counties. I'm thinking they are going back 5 days a week, but I'm sending my kid in a hotter zone than currently my student might be sitting in here. I mean, I'm just a personal, what I'd be thinking if my child was in school right now.
But I think we're down to 0 cases in the county, is that
That's what I'm
correct?
saying. I'd rather keep mine over here than
Yeah, I
send them
would be-
to 5 days over where.
I can't see the logic of sending your kid open enrolled to another district when it's not like it's only in Monroe County, or it's only in Belmont County, or it's only in West Virginia. So, I mean, I understand what Ronnie's saying, but I cannot see us losing students.
I don't know that districts will accept, they've done their
Yeah,
open
why would they,
enrollment.
right?
And now, why would they add more to what they've got to keep socially distanced?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you gotta have the room for them.
But here's another. I looked at their plan, and up to K through 3, they don't have to wear masks. Now, how can they get away with it if we can't?
could have. We just decided to be more restrictive because every time we
Well,
answered a question,
And
we
plus,
wanted to keep it at school longer.
I think their plan was out about a week ago before the governor came out and said everyone in public buildings.
Well,
I'm
that does exclude,
Is it 10 years old?
Yeah.
10, yeah, that's what it was, 10 years of age.
That's what I'm saying, their
Yeah.
plan's still in effect, exactly.
Yeah, and I'd say their plans are gonna change
Yeah, if you notice on,
between now
on
and,
every one of those I've seen, it says this could change at any time, given whatever's happening in the county, the district, the state mandate, that this could change at
Well,
any time.
that's what you're talking here tonight, our plan can change any time,
right.
right,
same thing.
It can change by next week.
And I remember what you said, Jennifer, it says, leave, yeah, I better put the back. Leave the students in with the teacher as long as we possibly can. That's what I'm saying, take the best plan, we're gonna leave the kids in there with them all.
Well, first we need to decide what our 3 plans are, should we need to move that way, require, then we need to decide how we're starting the year. So, we still have to have, whether we start with everybody in, or part of our kids in, we still have to have those 3 plans in place at any given time, we need to move back and forth.
So I'm hearing consensus for September 8th from the board,
That's fine, I'm just,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not against
just so
anything.
we can keep moving.
Yeah.
So Connie, if you wanna mark that,
You wanna vote on one individually, or you just want me to just?
we'll just do consensus
Noted.
and move through.
Okay.
Okay, so then for Article 2, so I think what we need to do is assign the color to this model, correct?
Right.
Like when we feel, okay, so let's do a consensus again, is that all right? I'll start with you. Speak up, please, if you would.
What do you want the consensus on?
So on
The
page,
the level green,
so when we do the 100% in person, what do you want the county to be on, what level? Either green or yellow?
green.
Greg?
Sarah, I want to correct you, when you say the county, are we going by Monroe County and Belmont both, since we're in Noble? You know
Wow.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
you checked into that too.
Yeah.
You wanna go ahead and elaborate on that?
so that's, we're difficult there because, and we are still trying to get some better language. What we're getting right now at the moment is work with both of our health departments, to make a decision when
All four.
something happens in Powhatan. Yeah,
Or in down
Or-
south Washington County?
yeah,
Noble County,
Noble.
yeah.
to the west.
So do we, like,
I don't have any
Belmont-
solid answer yet for you. It's like, take it case by case, what is happening in Powhatan building. It's kinda like, I don't even know how to answer it.
Have to be awful
Tag.
flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
yeah.
I think the health
The whole
department's gonna answer some of our questions.
Yes.
And it's really tricky because we have staff that live in Belmont County that are coming from
Right.
Monroe
You know,
County.
we're
and
in
we have
West
students
Virginia.
that can across both ways, so we have to work with all health departments.
I think if we have a case, then whenever we met with the Belmont County Health Department in Powhatan that day, they said if there's a case, they will come in and help notify and all that. And tell you what the days, who has to be
They'll
out,
do the tracking,
We can go for
Notify.
a majority of where the students are from.
probably, yeah. It may affect one building and not another building.
I think you're right, it's the tracking, I think, is gonna help them make a determination, like, where is that student living and coming from, and who were they in contact with, and then they'll work with them to help make a decision about the building.
It
And that's
should be
one of
where
the
their
articles you'll
parents
see
work,
later today.
because they might live not very far, but the parents might work in the where the
Yeah.
cases are, you know? There's a million different
scenario.
scenarios.
So Greg, what's your thought on 100%, what color?
Article 2, I would vote for option 2,
Green and yellow?
yes.
Green.
prefer green as well, Ronnie?
Green and yellow.
So, Greg and Ron, can you live with going
That's a consensus,
green?
I think that's the best way to go, 3-2, so.
Well, I mean, if we get into it,
I'm
Can
just
I-
giving us a little bit of a option, if it's just yellow, can we still do it? And as opposed to being right on the brink and saying.
And we could always come back and we could change that.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
If all the schools are going and it's not peaking, it's not breaking out,
Then we'll go to moderate.
then we could possibly come back all in. So I don't know how you do your levels, because,
Remember, sometimes right now, the levels was just for communications purposes. I think at any time we decide, we think it's safe enough to go back to face-to-face, which is our goal, we can do it and we can change but I think right now it's more for guidance for families to be able to visually figure out what this looks like, you know, but we have this statement down here that says we can come back anytime we need to change these things.
Right. And like it's not, I mean, I get the support is 3-2, but when you do the consensus, the two that are opposed to it need to be able to live with it, either with maybe some modifications or just, if you don't have a solution to the other one, then that's something you can live with. Like that's so that we all can agree and support what we're going with. Does that make sense?
Let me say this once, and once again, the teacher in me say it 3 times. The team really thinks what we were leaning towards is the hybrid in the yellow and the orange categories, so we weren't having to move so much. We were in, so we were kind of, in our mind, thinking we were covering yellow. I get the yellow and the green, probably what it went,
Well, if you recall at first when we was going over this, I told you I wanted the green and yellow. I didn't change my mind.
and I just think we need to keep an eye on it, because if it isn't, if we aren't having outbreaks, and other districts are back, maybe everyone, and they're not having outbreaks, we could consider going full-time,
Forward.
even if it's yellow.
So with that, your recommendation is green, but would you prefer to have yellow orange?
But we could always reconvene, hold a special meeting and say,
Right.
hey, this is what's going on around us, this is what's going on here with us.
Right, but if you put yellow on there, you wouldn't need to reconvene, because it's already covered, right? I mean.
I think that for clarity for
The parents.
the communications piece, at this point, I don't think I would recommend that to help us with communicating it back out to the public.
Okay.
But, I think we come back in another board meeting and say, hey, let's go all in, and we don't need the yellow and the red. So I think if we ever get to face-to-face and there's no cases happening, we're in pretty good shape then.
So, Greg and Ron, then can you support green, knowing that if it gets into yellow and the admin team feels that we could still go in person, does that make it any easier to support?
Yeah, that's what I said, I felt that was a little bit of a cushion for us, but I understand what you're saying, and if that's the way you wanna go with it, I'm okay with that. That was my opinion, and that I understand what's going on, so, yeah, I'm cool.
We're also trying to align a little bit with your first committee that came to you out of the health and wellness and group. Because they were really kinda, I think, all the safety precautions were kinda starting with the yellow and the orange. And that when we're out of emergency, then maybe we're out of these too. So we were trying to keep the pieces aligned along the way too.
The only thing with the communication piece is whenever the parents are gonna they're not gonna hear everything we heard tonight. And we have to really work hard to give them as much information in the simplest form possible. So if we tell them, we're not going all in unless it's green, but then we're all thinking, well, we might go all in. It might be better to tell, I don't know how you communicate it, because then that's kind of giving them false information from what we've discussed. Because it's going to be a hard decision for a lot of parents. And we need to give them, you know, if they want to be all in, it might change the way they decide they're going to do things if they know it might go all in before it goes to green.
I'll take a second here. You know, we finally got a release out on our webpage about the last piece you've approved so far. And within a couple of hours, we had 7,000 hits on it, which was incredible. And then that wasn't counting after then and when they started sharing it. And one thing that we're trying to do is to have, now that we know people know where to go look for it, a live banner that's constantly saying what's coming, what changed, you know, and there's a good, so I guess what I'm saying is I feel good people know where to go look. And that live banner moving all the time about whatever the latest breaking news is for us, I feel like they know to look. I wouldn't have said that until I saw 7,000 hits, and I was like, we don't have that many kids. 7,000 hits in such a short time, which also, you know, goes back to some of your conversations about us looking at other districts. They're looking at us too, and because we were working. We have a lot of colleagues in other school districts that we were working on our plans together, and they had a lot of appreciation for the thoughtfulness of how we seemed like we may be going a little slow, but they had an appreciation for it because they thought we might not have to change ours up as much as they were going to have to because they were in a rush to, you know, that rush to public makes us feel we have to hurry and get it out there. They thought we were being thoughtful to maybe not have to do it as much. But I don't know, Bev, if that helps with you knowing, like, a statistic of how many hits we got as soon as we released it.
And that's all
A couple hours.
somewhere, I don't know, it was today or yesterday, one of the counties in West Virginia, might be Marshall or Ohio County. They're gonna make their plan, they're gonna make it known official which direction they're gonna go. They're gonna announce it on August 17th.
I don't know, going back for a while.
Well, West Virginia, I don't think West Virginia's going back till September 8th. They usually go back in the middle of August, if not sooner. But they're all starting now on the 8th.
I have seen, you know, talking about working with these other districts, a couple of them, like, a month ago had a plan. I was like, we're so far behind. I keep sharing that with folks we work with, and they're like, no, you're right, for the progressiveness of your district, you're right in there and probably a little ahead of some others. But I saw some of these teams we were working with early went from they were going to start on a regular schedule to they're holding off for 30 days to all the way to Christmas. They changed, all of a sudden went all remote. And, yeah.
I think 2 meetings ago, after the meeting, I was talking to Rob, and he said, we're going to do all this planning, and we'll probably be shut down. They're going to shut us down before we get there.
They're going to drop the bombshell about third week of August.
We got a plan for what we know now.
That could happen.
Yeah.
Can you support the green one, knowing that we could consider yellow?
Well, you just turn, you consider yellow.
Is the green, yellow, the colors are we putting it on our own levels, or is this the state type stuff?
We're trying to align to the state's yellow, orange, red, purple. I think they have green in there too, because our health committee started that alignment to begin with, your first stuff you approved. So we were trying to we're piecing and mealing our plan together, so it kind of aligns with the colors that they had aligned their protocols to.
So is there any indication or anything that we know where we are on the state level right now?
Yeah, there's a state map, and and it's on the news at night. We're at yellow.
Is there anybody in green?
Nope.
No.
So why
The
would,
red pluses.
Yeah,
so why would we even be
Marietta, I think,
considered?
is almost purple,
Why would we even be talking about green right now?
because we want to get to green. We
Okay.
want to go to face-to-face. That's why.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Yeah, but what,
So we have to kind of have, if we're starting out on, so we can't start on green, we're not in green. I guess
It's
that's.
not our
yeah.
team's recommendation to start there, but we want to go there. We want to be in the middle and be able to slide that way versus sliding that way.
So if we decide, you want to, if the board decides we're going back 100%, then we would have to make this option green
Number
and yellow.
yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
So you might have to go back and change your thoughts. as
Yeah,
you
that's
work
what I'm
through the
trying to tell
plan.
you at the first of the meeting.
Okay, so,
I don't think how can we go back 100% and meet the social distancing guidelines?
don't have room in our schools.
Not unless there's a
I don't
big
know how
chunk
some of the
of
others
our
are going.
population that determines they're already doing remote and virtual
Yeah.
anyway.
Right, and once you
And
get
we don't know
those,
that yet.
that might change our plan.
I don't know what we're even sitting here for until.
Well, the parents have to have
unpredictable.
something to,
I know.
Right.
So let's say we're gonna send them back, and then if we can't, we can't. It's very simple. I mean, if the green, yellow, purple, whatever colors is
So-
right, we do it.
But we logistically can't right now because all of the social distancing requirements of us, we have too many kids, like Monroe Central and River, they're to the gills right now. There's no way those kids could go in social distance.
Again, how about a lot of them goes virtual? We might have room then, you know, we don't know.
I think I
And
know what Jerry's
and we'll
saying.
know,
Chicken
we might
before the
know,
egg
once we
kind of
set
thing.
this, we'll know more about that, and then we could maybe be able to do that in middle of all this.
because
When
if
you
you
say
have
we have
enough
a
go
survey done
virtual,
on
you
that?
might be able to send the rest of them back full time.
So the thing is, it's a chicken before the egg kind of thing. I understand what he's saying, except the part that's, as I say, behind the drapes is all of the work we gotta do to do whatever plan it is. And the parents are gonna wanna know this to be able to determine if they're, because we keep hearing, she receives a lot of calls about, are you doing this or that? Because if you do this, then we're doing that. And, so I don't think until we determine this, we felt like we could get a good number of who's registering for school. I think the parents are holding out with, you tell me what your plan is, and I'll tell you if I'm coming or not.
Right.
So, there's value to what Jerry's saying, and we're in the same boat with you, like flip a coin, but the bottom line is, however it is, we're coming back to another board meeting to still talk about this, because it didn't matter where we started, we were gonna have to do some kind of, swapping here. We just think this way we're gambling in the right direction of the feel that we have from surveys and how much of our team is out talking to the public. We feel like we might not have to do as much changing on the next board meeting by starting with this part of the plan first.
So can we say green if if the student count permits social distancing, and
That-
green
well, that
and
would be
green
the
and yellow if we can't social distance?
But if it's green, there's no public emergency, we don't
Right.
have to social distance.
Right, but if we would say, we was gonna go back full-time if the student number
Oh, green and
permitted,
yellow.
permitted social distancing. Because we don't know what our student numbers are.
Then but you could get into Belmont County, or Monroe County is a yellow, and Powhatan does have the space. Powhatan could be doing 100% in person, and everybody else, because they don't have the space, they can't do 100%. Is that going to be an issue?
Maybe we asked you to start on the wrong article. What if you started on which plan, now that you've heard them, you want to do, then go back and assign the levels? Maybe that's the order to do
That
it.
is a very good point, because like I said at the beginning of the meeting, that I am for, and I'm learning now this whole level thing. And no one's on green as far as I know, and I don't know if that's even achievable at this point. But I like that thought of, my vote would be, if I had to make a decision right now, 5 days in, on yellow, go for it, have a plan in place. If the numbers get high, bang, go to it. It's already there, right? You said the plans are there. How, I mean, to me, that's simple. You get the kids in, they get to meet their teachers, they get their Chromebooks, they get the first few weeks in or whatever. Maybe they get the first month in, maybe they get the first 2 months in. Maybe it goes.
We're shooting for Christmas.
Well, I'm just saying, to me, that's the simplest, most effective way, and then our backup plan's kind of like when this all started.
Two best ways for us to go is either all in or all out.
That's my,
I mean, that's the easy,
yeah, that's the
the two
easiest way
easy.
to go, because I think we're bouncing back and forth.
But
like
you
crazy.
got low risk, high risk, I mean.
Well, but it's like Jerry said, if those people decide they want to go virtual,
Right.
remote learning, that's their option, give them that option, and we provide whatever we have to provide for them. It seems to
But
be.
if you do 100% in, you're probably gonna have more virtual.
Well, I'm
And
gonna
that
tell
might
you,
not be the best education for the kids.
you're not thinking about another piece of the puzzle. We've already heard from our staff, if we're 100% in, we've got some staff members dropping like flies. They're in a high-risk category and they can't do it.
Can I make a clarification for our listeners too? The state colors are yellow, orange, red, purple. We included green as a district level to show that there's no public emergencies. Everything is back to the way it used to be. There's no concern. So that's, I want to make sure everybody understands that green is just a placeholder for us knowing that this is all over. There's no more concern about anything COVID-19 related. So does that, I hope that clears up a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does, but we're nowhere near that at this point.
And may I suggest, so you've got basically in the model A, B, and C, if you're still good with an ABC model, you have two options to look at in the B model. Maybe you look at if we were in a B model, which of the option would you want to go with, one or two? Then maybe go back and start looking at your colors once you know what the model is. Like what each model looks like. Then the last thing you'll do, once you have a date and 3 models with colors, determine which model you want to start on.
Okay, so for Model B, which is the hybrid learning, their recommendation is we do the hybrid learning under when we have yellow or orange. How you feel about that, Jerry?
That's great.
That's
I
great.
agree, yeah.
All right, Greg.
The hybrid or the modified hybrid?
Hybrid.
Yeah, you might want to go to the options. Well, you can do the color. I mean, I don't think it matters for the model. It's still a hybrid.
There's only one category for that hybrid learning.
Wait.
So for both hybrid models, we're assigning the color. Jerry was good. How about you, Greg?
Well, I'm a little confused here now. Your option 1, Model B, hybrid learning schedule for all grades K through 12?
No, right above that.
Right above.
The yellow level 1, 2, 3, or 4, yellow, orange, red, or purple.
So we will decide the specific hybrid model after we assign the color. So right now, all we need is
The recommendation is yellow and
yellow
orange.
and orange.
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. What do you think, Bev?
I'm good with that.
Ronnie?
Yep.
All right, I'm good too. Thanks. Okay, now, do you want to?
2 options in this B model.
Okay. Yes.
All the same. Option A is the same hybrid model, grades K through 12. Model B is modified, which gives us room in our buildings to social distance a little better if we were considering the worst scenario of having everyone back. A couple buildings are stuffed. And I don't mean worse, but I'm meaning we consider it the worst model is, like, now we got to think differently where we put in bodies.
So now we're going to determine if we want the regular hybrid learning or the modified, which the modified allows the high school kids to be remote so that they can space out the younger kids, gives them the face-to-face. Now with the high school though, they can still meet face-to-face, like small groups, one-on-one appointments. So it's not cold, it's not. When do you prefer, Jerry?
I need to make a correction here too. this, when you're too close to looking at this all the time, we keep missing things. Option 2, it says that first week again, 50% capacity. I think we captured it on the dates on the front, but that's for option 1 also. And both of these options still take into consideration the exceptions for special populations of having more one-on-one their teachers too. That is the assumption, right, for both of these models,
Okay.
even though I see we missed it on a cut and paste up there.
Okay, so the part that I said about the high schoolers are able to do the small groups.
On this modified hybrid learning schedule?
That's modified. The one right above it, option 1, is the regular hybrid, which
Yeah, we done,
everybody's on the same
yeah, on page, yeah.
With some of our larger capacity schools are saying they may have to rotate 3 groups to be able to social distance.
So the only difference is between the hybrid and the modified is the high school, excuse me, 9 through 12 start out remote. The other one, everybody is 2 on, 3 off.
K-4 comes 4 days a week.
For the one where everybody goes. Which,
There's
which
no one-
option you say?
Option 1.
That's one.
Option 1, yeah, I'm for option 1.
Greg, what's your thought?
Same option 1.
Option 2.
13.
You guys are just trying to kill me.
Ron,
Option 1.
I have that feeling.
Should I ask you first then?
Well, next time I will.
Okay.
All
Steve
right.
first, Mike.
Now, one thing you can think about down the road that we've had this conversation before, and I still don't know it's a complete fix, but if we go into that option 1 and everyone comes back and then we can't social distance, we still have options for, what do we call these trailers?
Modular.
Modular, and we also have the ability, and we're looking into possibly, I don't know, we haven't had this conversation yet, but like the Hannibal Professional Building, if they had a room, we might be able to like put a, I don't know what, we have not had the conversation with them, but
How about
as
the
an idea,
gyms
there
in
might
the
be a
schools?
place to go there,
How about
put
the
a-
gyms in the schools, why couldn't we?
in the gym,
open them
we
up?
have to
Yeah.
use some of them, I think, even for
Cafeterias.
lunches. And we're always thinking about those, but we're also thinking about, we're in a 5-day model, and you're sitting in the gym, and it echoes all the time, and the lights are different, and, but the principals are talking about, we can grab some space in these odd places in their buildings. Multi-purpose rooms might be able to hold some more. They're thinking about moving some of their larger classes into some of the larger classrooms, so swapping teacher classes.
So on on option 2, where the high school starts, is that the problem with that for you guys?
Yeah, I want everyone to go.
Is that,
I want everybody to go too.
I apologize, I'm not sure how you can proceed in consensus, because when you do a consensus, you change you address your issues and you change them so that everyone can buy off. In this situation, I don't think we can do that, because you need more of a structure. Options need to be clear. So we can.
Vote individually. And get the consensus, vote individually.
So what was your recommendation on this option did the team come up with? What did you recommend?
We haven't really had one on that one. I mean, we just wanted to give out the options that are out there.
But
That just,
For the larger buildings, option 2 is going to help with that
basically,
space.
But until we get the survey results back.
One more variable, that's about to kill you.
And we're trying to be thoughtful about the research that it's the younger kids that the social emotional growth was most important, not that it's not at all,
Right.
but that they needed the most, and that was why we shifted to get them in the buildings more than.
Hearing from our elementary teachers too, it's very challenging for kindergarten students to do remote learning. That's really challenging. So if we can get the younger kids in there more frequently, and they're having that interaction with the teachers at the elementary level. 5 through 8, the thinking behind that is, we can't be 100% in, everybody. 5 through 8 would come in alternate days, so they're still getting instruction, but they're older and they can do more on their 9 through 12 as needed. Basically, they're coming in if they need to, but most of their instruction, they're doing it on their own, or they're calling in, or they're coming in by appointment.
What if, thinking outside of the box, that it's our 12th graders that we try to have them more on the 100% remote, but then that 9th and 10th grade, we try to maybe bump them into the model the junior high's on if we have the space. Because in a little way, the juniors and the seniors, especially the ones that might be trying to take CCP and college courses, like everything's online, all your college is on. It's almost a good training for them to get ready before they're going into some of that. But some of them are trying to travel to the college campuses, if they're even open. They're remote right now, too. Just a thought.
What about, maybe we go with option 1, but we introduce the mobile classroom to help out with the spaces, especially with Woodfield Elementary and River. Powhatan may not have it with that. I think it's, I don't know about, but
I think they're probably okay for, you're okay 2 days a week for everyone, probably space-wise, aren't you?
okay. So the big concern would be Woodfield and River.
I do probably, yeah. With the added room. Yeah, so once you get the surveys, then if we need space, we'll have to deal with that at the time. Like Cindy said, maybe we could, if there's somewhere close.
We haven't approached anyone yet, but it's just a thought.
And you may not need it after you get the survey.
Numbers, yeah. So how about, are you okay with amending option 1 to add modular 4? You decide to put them.
Or maybe we come back to you and say, this is how many kids we got now. We need a place to put them.
We need to have on a chair. Been on a chair, but I know that they're having a hard time hearing Ronnie and Jerry. We removed it so they could hear Jerry. I think Ronnie's going to take off his mask, I think.
I think we'll just have to, if we have too many kids, we'll have to do what we're gonna do. That's it.
Right, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Whatever brings our way, we
We may not have,
deal with
we
it.
may not have very many.
Right, just anything
I
across
think
this, we have to
come
deal
back
with
if we
it.
haven't.
You can always put them in orbit building.
We could.
Then you got busing. I think that's where the biggest problem's gonna be with.
Yeah. You think this is bad, Jerry?
Because if you put them 6 feet apart on the bus, you're not gonna have very many kids in the
We
bus.
can't even decide
Even if you set families together.
Actually, this model you're picking is, we may not be able to do it in busing, because we still have to maintain the social distancing on the bus. And that's, on a 66-person bus, I think there's 22 kids. me saying, I think all of our buses might be 66, and I don't even know if Jason's still around here, but, yeah, I don't, is that, do we have bigger buses or smaller buses than that?
No, they're all
66s, so
They're the
the
same
number is like 22 or something?
roughly around 20. Yeah.
So, that, we may be in trouble right out of the chute if,
But only half of them's coming.
I'm sorry?
Only half of them's coming if everyone comes.
From what I've looked on, like bus rosters, we have that old spreadsheet. If we do 2 days with a group A student and 2 days with a group B student, so that gives us half. And then plus the one, we know there's gonna be students that take virtual, or there's health issues, they're not gonna come back. I think we'll be okay with that. There might be a route or two here or there that, you know, like here in Woodsville, where we've got a few routes that are double routed. We may have to run into the grade school, maybe drop a few kids off and come back out and pick up a few more. So it's gonna give us a 10 or 15-minute window. But I think that truly will work for us. I think we can make that work. Then they happen to group A and a group B and then group C goes. Because the extra students that will leave for virtual, whatever it may be, I think it'll bring our numbers low enough.
Yeah, and here's another thing, for Jason, when Jason's committee is gonna be the next thing you start looking at, but as soon as we get something tonight, we'll start producing the, enrollment form, but it's gonna have on there, are you gonna be using our provided transportation? Are you a guardian bringing your child to school, or are they riding in a carport with, you know, maybe a older sibling or something bringing them? Because that affects his numbers too. Because we've already heard parents talking about their kids aren't gonna ride the bus.
I've had several parents ask, you know, it's like, well, what are we doing? I said, well, it's kind of, you know, still weighing the options, you know, out. And it's like, well, I'm just gonna take my kids on. I said, that's okay, you know, that's fine. Sure,
Right.
you know, that works, you know, if you keep in your car, you don't, you know, that's okay. So that actually makes our numbers easier on transportation if that does happen.
Okay, so we got Model 3 done, right? Article 3. Sorry.
We're supporting option 1 with possibility of modulars. Can we support that? All right. So as far as, Article 3, we can support option 1, with the use of modulars as needed. So when you get your numbers, if, that could be a. We did a color, we did,
Yellow and orange.
orange, yeah, we went with the recommendation. All right, so Article 4,
And now you got the A model and the B model that you need to determine what colors, since now you picked the color in the middle.
Where?
Article 4 is model 100% remote learning.
yes.
You just need a color for it, but then also, a lot like it is model A, which is 100% in, it needs a color too. Just to visually allow you to think about what you're doing right now.
So on 100% remote learning, the recommendation is we do this when we're on red and purple. I'll start with you, Ron.
Yes.
Steph,
Yes.
sounds good, yes. Greg?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do you want to know? So under the 100% remote, there's, that's all we had to do on the what, that one, right? With the color?
Yes.
All right, now, back to the beginning. Signing this one, Article 2. When we're 100% in person, we did not go with the color. And to reiterate, green is something that we added to make clear that when we're at green, there is no pandemic, there is no health emergency, there's no directives from the governor. This is our happy place.
Green.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, we're all healthy and safe, yeah, green and good, yeah. That's a good one. So the only question is, can you live with, hold on, I get two different, I don't know who they are, they're texting me, telling me that they can't hear. Tess, can you do a sound level again? I know I can't hear you, but can you check that? Maybe we should, call back in to get a good, I'm hoping Tess can hear me in her room.
It doesn't play, it's not like a 5-second.
Oh, is that? If I speak faster?
Cindy, how about the career tech kids? They need to go to school to get their certificated hours, right?
Yes, so they're looking at a schedule that's a big, block modified, it aligned more on that option 2 model. Their academics would be away so that they can social model certain career fields would be coming in on certain days so that they can social distance.
She said she can hear you fine.
And here's, everyone else, good.
Okay. Okay, so they can't hear what was selected, and they seem to be able to hear me, so I'm just gonna run through it real quick, okay? For the start date, we did September 8th. Article 2 is not decided yet as far as what color it will be when we do 100% in-person learning. Article 3, we assigned the colors yellow and orange, we agreed. We all will go with option 1, the hybrid learning where we're in 2 days, out 3 days with the possibility of modulars. We'll know better on this when we get our numbers back to make that a more clear decision or preference. Article 4, Model C, the colors we assigned to that are red and purple, and that is the 100% remote learning.
Sarah,
Yes,
can
sir.
I ask you a question?
Yes.
I know we haven't decided anything on Article 2, but let's just say, for instance, we go with option 2, which is green and yellow. How can we do the next one, yellow and orange? You're overlapping. You got to pick one or the other. You can't overlap colors to put you in 2 different options.
I think kind of when we talked, we kind of were considering with the health department, like where the cases were, and
But I think that's where that puts you. If the cases are in one spot, you're yellow. If it's another spot, you're orange. If you're another spot, you're red. Like, I don't think,
Right,
in my
and
opinion, you can't assign 2 colors to, you can't cross categorical.
Okay, so you think we can go with green on?
There is no green. Green doesn't exist.
They say there's no green now.
I get to go.
Green doesn't exist, and I think we
Well,
should,
green existed on an original model the state came out with.
it doesn't now.
And now it sits on some people's plans, but really, green in one way does exist. We're not in a public emergency. But we don't see it on the emergency colors,
Right.
which is, we're all under it. We did do a yellow-orange, for the hybrid, which is, we're not wanting to move. You could do a yellow-green, but it's just a little cloudy that within, public's waiting on you to determine we're moving back and forth.
I can see the yellow-green because green isn't there, and everybody's on at least yellow, which is acceptable at this point because there's 0 cases and we're leveling out. I realize there's a potential to spike once the kids are back into school, but in my opinion, you can't, that's the only one you can put 2 colors to. You can't put 2 colors to anything else. That defeats the purpose of having steps or protocol. When you hit that particular color, then you move to the next step. What defines, if you're yellow and orange, where's your definition? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, we were still staying in there. Orange was approaching, out, but
Right.
you're making sense. I'm trying to think of how did we ask the question to answer.
So I mean,
answer,
and the simplicity of the whole thing is, let's say, hypothetically, we say 100% in yellow right now, we go in. We hit orange, bang, we gotta go to our next option. We hit red, bang, our next option. Just as simple as that. We can't have two options with one color or two colors with two options. To me, it makes no sense. I don't know how you even go that route. The more we get into it, the more confused I get, to be honest with you.
maybe you skip the colors, go to which model you wanna start on, and then, because we're in yellow right now as a county, right? We're in yellow right now, and yellow becomes our starting point, and then we,
High would be orange.
But how can we go 100% in, not being able to social distance?
well,
I don't-
I am with you, I'm
I
trying
don't
to think how I can
I
make
think you
this
take
work.
that out of the equation. You're taking it upon yourself. They can wear a mask if they choose to, they can go virtual if they choose to. And, you know, that's it. You tell the public that that's what it is on yellow. We hit orange, then it's hybrid. And they know that. We've already discussed the fact that we want the kids to go for sure first week. We pushed it back to give the teachers a week to prepare for that, and I like that idea. So you bring them in the first week regardless, at possibly 50% because we're anticipating a lot of the remote or virtual learning. Anticipating. What if we get 80% of the kids want to come to school? You know, so where do you go? Then we're back at square one. If we just, again, my suggestion or my way of thinking, send them all. You know, there's no law against putting the kids on the bus side by side. They have to wear a mask. People do it every single day. Go to the store. Go
Well,
uptown.
I think we do have, Jason?
Yes.
I think we do have to social distance on the bus with masks, right?
Mask is definite, yes, for everything I've seen so far.
Just the mask or 6 feet.
The mask is a definite, now, I think the jury's still out on 6 feet, I haven't seen anything stamped that says yes.
And that's kind of the consensus of what we thought. No one's ever, Debbie even said that there's been no.
But the mask, like I say, I have not seen anything yet unless something I know the governor was on again today, maybe there was an
You're
education.
gonna be
piece
running
to it.
buses everywhere.
That's my point. There's
Yeah,
no.
if you have to.
You have to?
No, I'd say
Yeah.
if you have to.
Oh, it'd be a logistic nightmare, wouldn't it, for the busing? You know, I'm saying hypothetically, if there's more than 50%, if the majority of the kids are gonna come back to school, especially the kids that are in places where they can't do virtual or remote, and they can't be at home because their parents work. You know, we saw all this last year. I had the problem with my own daughter. It was terrible for her. She needed to be in school. It's part of what she is. And there's a lot of kids like that. Jerry says the social part of it. Beyond that, just think maybe we're looking too much into it. We could say, what if? Well, what if it doesn't happen? Kids are in school, won't roll my lawn. You said it yourself. Till Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're also gonna be hung up with our staff.
Well, I think that's just a little bit of collateral damage. We don't punish them for it. They can still be involved. We sub it out. We've already talked about, we're gonna purchase portable buildings. Wouldn't it be easier
We
to
wouldn't necessarily purchase them, we could.
rent them, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it make more sense to get that teacher a substitute, and let them work with the substitute to teach the class?
Depends on how many substitutes we're needing and how
And,
many are.
and the state right now is having, we think there's a shortage.
Well, I
So
realize
there-
that.
Subs, from what I've heard, subs say the pay's not good enough for me to have the rest.
I thought we was gonna discuss that next meeting,
Yeah.
about getting this.
So one thing I wanna caution is, whatever you choose, but if we go this model, you know, we've gotta go back and address what you approved last week. Because that will make a difference on your health plan.
How will that change it?
Well, if you're going and everyone's riding the bus and we're not worrying about social distancing,
Why not?
We're not social distancing on the bus, we're not social distancing in the classroom. That's like playing football and going to school.
so
You just
you'll have to
undid.
go back and address, I don't have it in front of me, but we're gonna have to address some things that you put into place and.
We put in last week, what? If anytime you're within 6 feet, you must have a mask on,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Or if you're transitioning,
Mandatory on the bus.
mandatory on the bus.
But what liability do we have if we put kids in every seat on the bus?
It's their choice to go to school or not. You don't force them to go. They have the option to stay at home and do the remote or virtual. There's no liability in that I can see. You're not forcing them, you're not punishing them as an unexcused absence, are we? They don't come to school?
No, we would provide
They
learning.
would have to choose what option they want. I
That's what
mean,
I'm
whether they're
saying.
gonna do
They have to
remote,
log the
online,
hours.
or virtual. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to do some type of schooling, whether
I'm not,
it's with
no,
us
I'm
or
not
somebody else.
saying they don't come to school physically, and like what we're concerned about being on, if the parents are concerned about their health and
Yeah,
safety.
they could choose the Blue Sky Academy.
Right. What do the teachers say?
That's why they were on this committee, that's why we did the,
I mean, you
Suggestions.
polled all the teachers or just a select few?
the ones that were willing to serve on the committee. That's sit on that committee.
Yeah, I said on a lot of,
What's the percentage of teachers not coming back to you, Snow?
Well,
Well,
we don't
not
know
a
for
strong
sure,
one, just the ones that participated.
the ones who are uncomfortable, because we can't ask them point blank.
Yeah, you can't do that. We did have one where you signed, didn't we, the other day? Thinking about it.
Well, isn't that their option? If they don't wanna come, they don't have to come. Same way if I work through the bank or down at the plane or something, don't wanna go, don't go.
What's that, Jer?
We're confused, I mean, we just got so many different things going on here.
But I
It's
really,
subject to change overnight, that's what's so confusing about it. We
Well-
don't really know what to do.
And it's hard because, you know, if we would return to 100%, you have to consider the people that you're putting in jeopardy. And I'm going to use that word because you're possibly causing a life. If these kids have to go home to family members that are elderly or have pre-existing conditions, you know, and I feel like we have more of a responsibility.
So our survey question says, assuming there is no vaccine available in the fall, but our district buildings reopen and follow safety protocols, will you be comfortable coming back to work? We had 72.8% say yes, 27.2% said no.
That's just a poll, they'd be concerned.
Yeah, the word is comfortable. I
Right.
wonder.
Comfortable.
Now, we don't know, right, we don't know how many.
Here would be my question to those same people, and I'm just being devil's advocate here. How many of them went to vacation in Myrtle Beach? How many of them went to the grocery store without a mask? You know what I'm saying? I know for a fact there's some teachers saying, I'd like to have another 3 months off and do all the work from home, not have to go to school every day. I'm just saying, we have to make a decision for the best thing for these kids to get an education. We kind of started to figure out the remote learning last year. That was tough. It was tough on a lot of people. But if we see a little spike, I think we can work through it. Our whole area of the state, from what I understand, is low as anybody else. And I think, Cindy, you mentioned earlier about the big 8, the big cities, but I think that's just population.
But Belmont's not one of the big 8.
They're
And Marietta's
yellow,
not,
aren't they?
and Marietta, down there, they're a red plus on the verge of purple, and they are not a big 8.
I think he said today there was only 20-some counties that was yellow.
And
The
a
rest
lot
of
of that
them's
depends on
increasing.
your testing, we don't have a lot of testing.
Well, they did just test those 55.
That's why
I figured those were coming back positive, but
Some of the red went down to orange, but a lot of the yellow went up
Up
to
to
orange
red.
across the. And it's coming this way. I don't know that we'll ever see it, but it's getting closer to our area. Hopefully we don't.
Nobody's in purple.
No, they've listed them as red plus.
Been along that high river, keep getting the yellow.
Yeah, right, shows it all.
We need to figure out what option one or option two for Article 2. Correct?
Well,
It's always waiting on that one.
waiting on what?
Did you say Article 2? I thought we was on Article 5.
Option one of Article 2, either it's full-time on green, which, again, I don't know, really doesn't exist.
Yeah, it don't exist, we just found.
Full-time, that means we never go back.
So you have to change it to green and yellow, and your next hybrid, you have to change it to orange.
Right.
Yeah. That's simple.
I'm not for that because we can't, there's no way we can possibly social distance if everyone goes back.
You won't know until it counts, then. You don't know that yet.
We can always change it, right?
Right.
I don't support 100% right off the bat.
I'll stick to my guns. I said from the very beginning, send them back under yellow, full bore.
Is the health department gonna allow that?
What's the other districts around us doing? I believe they're saying the kids back.
Well, I kind of like to think I'm leading the pack, but,
We ain't leaving the pack, we're way behind right now.
I don't agree with that.
I think so. They're all saying they're sitting
All right.
behind.
Choose one.
But put up for vote. Yeah. Let's put it up for vote and see what happens.
I think when you have your plan, then, the next step is he takes it and works with the health department, so they have to approve it.
So what you're saying is if we vote to send them back, that still might not happen.
And it could, I don't know. They were very involved with the first step of giving us the health steps, the part that you did last week.
And I may have missed this, was there a recommendation from the health department?
They were on our committee.
They sat in on the health committee. And the health committee, big recommendation is to do the hybrid, starting out.
The committee, come to that. What did the health department itself say?
They were on the committee and it was.
I mean, you're saying, I feel like I'm getting this,
Do you know
what did the health department say?
She was in agreement with the health committee's recommendation.
She was at the last meeting.
I don't think she said anything.
Not at that last meeting.
She didn't say anything, but the ones I've been at.
She did say she didn't like the wording on that one article.
Well, Bev, you said in Belmont County, what did he say,
Well,
the health department?
they talked down there and he felt, he was only concerned about Powhatan and he felt they had the room to social distance with their numbers.
Tess, if you can hear me, I'm getting people saying that the sound is cutting out. If they want to type a question in, you could send it to us if they missed something, or, you know, we could reiterate like that. That's going to be easier than trying to reiterate the whole meeting. But currently, we're discussing 100% all in and what the health department has recommended, or one of the other models recommended.
I think the majority wants model option one, so.
If they type a question, she can bring it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Are we open for motions yet or no?
Do you want to go over the other articles behind there, so we can include all of them?
So I've been trying to make notes for each one. What are you guys deciding to do with Article 2 and the collar? Are you changing, like, I still have it as green and yellow, your original. Are you changing the collars on that in the next article?
Yeah, we're gonna do the next article and then just assign, I'm assuming, it's just assign one color to it.
Well, we didn't have, Bev and I don't support the yellow color with 100% return.
But they can make a motion.
Yeah,
They can make a motion, and then we can vote how
Yeah,
we
you
want.
vote how you want.
I'll make a motion that we start with the hybrid model, the option that allows us to add modulars, which we all had consensus on, so it's in Article 3, Option 1.
Before we do that, I have a question, Sarah. So are we going to assign a specific color, or, I don't see how we can do two colors with that. We have to hit orange to go hybrid.
Well, the colors that were assigned were yellow and orange. So, my motion can say under yellow. So we do the hybrid. So in Article 3, when we're at yellow, we do Option 1, Model B, with the option of adding modulars if the numbers warrant.
So that you're pretty much saying now to the article before, it's putting in Option 1, green only.
Yes.
I'm not for that. Because there is no green. Green doesn't exist. We're not gonna get there.
I don't think we have the option to do 100% in person. I don't think we can do it logistically and.
Some of the schools you can't, it's an own fact.
What I'm saying is, if we try it, and the numbers allow it,
Go for it.
based on the remote, people going remote, and we can change it any time, why not try it?
But do you think that's if we do 100% remote and people don't, like,
It's gonna be hard to do remote. It's hard on people to do remote. A lot of kids don't get any education.
that's what I'm saying, if we say we're going all in and we have more go remote, is that the best thing for
That's their
the
choice.
students?
It's up to their parents.
Yeah, there's nothing we can say about that.
Yeah, that's choice.
They may not have a
But
choice
my
if there's
big
health
concern is-
issues in the household.
Well, then we support that as a board and as an administration, as a group of teachers. We have to make sure they do get it. That's why we're here. It's why teachers do what they do.
Now they're telling us that we're gonna lose 25% of our teachers, so how are we gonna have classes without teachers?
I don't have any idea.
You know, them buildings ain't gonna do you pretty good, sir, if we don't have no teachers.
So, to restate the motion, my motion is at level 1, which is yellow, under Article 3, Model B, we do Option 1, the hybrid learning for all grades K through 12, with the option of adding a modular. I restated that for the public, they can't hear, to clarify the motion. So that what's being discussed is if we go all in 100% right off the bat. The concern is, the logistics, the room to social distance. We won't be able to do that, and our teachers and their, I don't know what you call it, comfort level. That's not even the right word, though.
Concerns?
Yeah, their concerns for if they have pre-existing conditions or they just want to be kept safe.
I'm looking here at our social distancing that we approved last week. It says school staff should, whenever possible, maintain 6-foot social distance among students, staff, and volunteers in all school environments, including classrooms, hallways, restrooms, cafeteria, playgrounds.
David said, is it should or
It should.
shall?
Yes,
I
go
was
ahead.
just thinking, if we could look at the logic to when we opened up restaurants and bars, and then we got an explosion, if we kind of modeled that in the school, we open up 100%, we might get an explosion, which might take us backwards from what we were trying to do originally, which is to stay in school as long as we could with all of these social distancing things. Right now, I believe, did they change, they're cutting back on the bar?
They
You
have
know,
to-
they opened it up and now they're like having to go back and control it.
They can't serve after 10, and they have to be out by 11.
So they're putting restrictions back in place again. We were hoping the model we presented might extend our time with our students versus what might happen if we were to go back 100% all in. And then that might wipe all of our buildings back out, and then we're back in that situation we were last year at the end of school year that we didn't want to be in. We felt like children lost more then than a model that was giving them half time in school. Just a thought, if we were looking at models, granted it's not school, but models where we've opened up business, now we're having to back off again.
Rob, are you recommending 5, 6, 7, and 8, or did you just give those to us? Are we approving, you want approval on those?
There's
Yeah,
we-
it's kind of for
We just
information.
need to
That's
approve
the-
those.
Article 5.
We want to use them in publication.
Oh,
We need you to act on them, there's just no options, and
That's
it's a
just, they're
single option.
informational. But it's got nothing to do with the plans, whichever plan you choose.
Right.
They end up becoming parts of your overall plan, just not the opening, or the piece that has moving parts in it.
well, Article 7 is blown out of the water if we do 100% after that.
We may start running into a lot of more issues in Article 6 too, but some of these will have more language as we get more directives coming, but we were wanting approval to start using some of this stuff in our publications to help folks feel a little bit more comfortable about these articles are being addressed.
And if we do start out 100%, would a parent be able to enroll their child in remote learning right off the bat? So they've got a teacher, and that teacher would be able to,
One of our teachers been doing it remotely. We're gonna have to know that number soon,
Yeah.
like in the next 2 weeks.
Now, everyone's 100% in, then who's doing the remote teaching? Because
Well, yeah,
now
that's,
it's above their,
yeah, like
what's
I wanna
going
get to
on.
that detail, what is, if we're 100% in, we've got all of our teachers obligated, unless we split that, and we basically record them as they're teaching, or is their choice at that point, the blue sky piece?
Peak.
No, I didn't say peak. I'll never recommend peak,
Okay.
sorry.
But that peak would be an option.
For the high school.
Great. It only,
9, 12. I mean, it can go lower, but it's just, we have a huge.
I got a question, there's a motion on the floor, is there a second, or, if not, move on.
I think it needs, I would prefer that you take all the articles, how you prefer them, so we can, rather than voting on one and then voting on,
Okay, so I can, just to make it clean, I'll rescind my motion, or let it die for lack of second,
That is like second, I would say.
and then restate it. That's, I
with
think
all
that's,
the articles.
yeah. So that was, did you get that, Connie? I'm sorry. Is there a delete button?
Well, I erased all the article notes that I put in there and put in the motion in, so.
You should really know better than that. Can you hit your undo, like go back?
Well, I saved it. I just saved it and I'll mark it up later. I saved the motion you had.
And that died
And I'll
for a
just
lack
make a
of,
note in there
second.
and then we'll add another one.
okay. So in my motion, you want to, or in the motion, you want these last articles included.
And all the options for all the articles.
So what I had typed up and deleted.
We really didn't talk about the last articles, though. Do we want to?
What we should do is go option, start every article and vote on them, then go to Article 2.
And I'll make a motion for each article if you wanna do that. And
All
make
right.
notes
That's how it should be.
if you wanna do it. that
Okay,
way.
Article 1 is the start date.
All right, let me, I'm fine
And I'm trying to think if one article would affect the other. If you, for instance, if you know, we get farther back through there, you prefer 100% learning, does that affect your start date? So. Tell me when you're ready, Connie.
I'm ready.
All right, Article 1, start date. I'll make a motion that we start September 8th.
Second.
Okay, voting is open. On the start date. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion, we accept option 2 under level green and yellow.
So, we're on Article 2, right?
I thought there wasn't a green, Ronnie.
Well,
They're saying there's no green, so why would we be putting a motion to
well, in
open
case there is,
Huh?
in case there was a green.
Oh, okay.
you can call it whatever color there is.
Yeah,
If you want, there is a no public emergency level. Green is sometimes when you see it.
So your motion for 100% in person was at level green, correct?
Green and
No,
yellow.
option two,
Green and yellow.
green and yellow.
Option,
Second, motion.
We'll have to have a mask on all the time then, if we can't social distance.
We can't social distance, so
We'll have to wear the mask.
okay,
All
Ronnie,
day.
Jerry, you were my second, right?
Greg was.
Greg,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, motion for option two, level green and yellow, correct? That's what your motion was, okay. Voting is open. Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
No,
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
no. Motion carries. So Article 3, we would only do hybrid at Orange.
I don't, yes, and then go progressive from there for the next.
Actually, you could overlap. Since you're sliding, now I'm sitting thinking about it. You could slide
Where do
the,
you cut that off at, though? I mean, you say,
it's him working with the health department.
yeah, but I mean, they're gonna come and tell you?
Well, we were doing yellow and orange anyway, so you could slide in between there.
I guess my
Remember, the
point,
colors are more for communications purposes.
right, but my point is if the health department's gonna come tell you, that's who you're gonna communicate with, right? They're gonna put you at orange. They're not gonna say, well, you're getting close to orange, so maybe you ought to go.
Well, they might
No,
say,
the
we're,
state- the state has, if you meet 5 guidelines, you're a certain color, if you meet, they have all these guidelines, and
Right.
they check off how many your county meets. And then you, whatever number of checks you got, that's what color you're in.
So there is no, but, so like, address what you're saying, if you're sliding, if
I
you have.
believe what the health department is
Like
approving
yellow
is
and a
our
half?
plan, whether they
Yeah,
believe it's
how do
safe.
you do yellow and a half? I mean, I'm not trying to be jokester, but they're gonna tell you, like that says, your check mark, now you're orange. Once you hit that check mark,
Well, Greg, to help you on the policies and communications plans that we approved last board meeting, we basically acted like, there was some definitions that, clarified a yellow and an orange and a red and a purple, but for the most part, there wasn't that much difference in our communications, so we combined them and said, we're doing this in the yellow and the orange, and we're doing this in the red and the purple.
but you're telling me we're gonna consult with the health department to
I think-
determine that.
I believe, on that committee, but I believe the health department doesn't tell you you have to or not. I think what they look at is your plan and kind of determine if your plan, where you're sitting, is safe.
Which they have to prove once we get through all this.
I'm afraid to answer that, but I think so.
I'm just assuming that, I thought that's what was said earlier.
So for the public, the motion that was just passed was Article 2, Option 2, when we're at yellow or no public emergency is when we would do in person, 100% in person. The motion passed. So Belmont County is yellow right now. We'll do 100% in person, September 8th.
And that says there is remote or virtual, so we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do the remote.
Now I'd like to make a motion when we go to, orange level, that we go with option 1 on the hybrid Model B.
I'll second.
Okay, voting is open. Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
No. Motion carried.
Make sure all these motions are saving. Okay.
So to restate the motion in case it wasn't heard, the motion passed that under Article 3, Model B, at orange level, we go to the hybrid, option 1. So there's no sense in doing Article 4 because they're going to have to do remote learning for their safety from the get-go.
I make a motion for option 4. We do Model C and when it's red and purple.
I'll second that.
Level 3 and 4, right? Red and purple?
Yes.
Okay, voting is open.
Did mine vote? My box one went.
No, it did not.
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Motion carried. So you need to do something with the rest of the articles.
Articles 5, 6, and 7 are language with no options. 6 is, services that we will be providing for special education through remote or virtual learning options.
That's 5, right?
That's fine.
I'm sorry, I need glasses. Can I borrow those, Ronnie?
Yeah.
Article 5.
So the case manager option, can you, or, Ryan, can you talk a little bit about that? Students will be assigned a case manager to coordinate.
So Larry?
Yes, Cindy,
Can you
I could address that. Yes, Sarah, I think that's going to be the intervention specialist. They would have direct contact with the parent and the student, so that is just referring to the intervention specialist.
Okay, so I'm just gonna cross out case manager and put intervention specialist. Or did you, I mean, I was thinking maybe you wanted to add a layer of personnel to help with reaching out to that population and coordinating those services.
Are they still called a case manager?
Well, that would be their case. They would be managing a certain number of students that are on their roster that they're assigned to. So some people refer to them as a case manager, but technically that's the intervention specialist. But we really never discussed any additional personnel.
Our intervention specialists were called case managers.
No, they're just calling them,
They're managing cases.
he's just calling them this in this situation, that they're gonna be managing that individual case or that individual student. And they'll probably also have assistants, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, through possible paraprofessional.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Our staff that are referred to as case managers.
Yeah, do we?
Yeah, that's what, because
Yeah.
we do have case managers
Yeah, I mean, I understand what Larry's saying,
in the
but,
school.
Would it be okay just to change it to, they'll be assigned to an intervention specialist?
Yes, that you can change it, Bev, but they already have that intervention specialist assigned to them because they are on their caseload.
Bless you. Thank you, Larry.
Sure.
Would you like to change the case manager, or are you okay with Larry's explanation?
Well, I crossed out case manager and put intervention specialist. I think it's more clear.
Because we have case managers through GMS, right?
Amen.
Yeah, funded by JSS.
We'll need action on that, please.
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 5, understanding that there's more language to further develop our services.
Second.
What was the motion?
To accept Article 5,
Okay.
we changed case manager to intervention specialist and understand that that's going to be developed, but that's not the end, like everything else.
You were my second, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the second.
Okay, voting is open. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I don't know why I said your name.
Yeah, I've got to remember how I voted. All right, that motion carries. This brings us to Article 6. Now, on Article 6, I know it's not specifically stated, but in the event that an employee would get COVID, is there, they wouldn't have to take their sick time, there's money under the CARES Act?
We have more language coming for that.
Okay, so we're not addressing that here, which is,
Not
is
yet.
fine, okay. Any questions or discussion on 6?
This has been reviewed by our
Legal.
insurance and legal.
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion.
I second.
Did you have any questions?
No.
Okay, voting is open. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Okay, Article 7, and is this plan on Board Doc, Cindy, that people could look at the specifics, because I don't want to read the whole,
This
Yeah.
part?
yeah, that the public can see?
Not yet.
I thought it'd be on the Board Doc.
It's under administrative.
This is,
It wasn't
The
on the
plan.
public to be
Plan.
earlier.
Administrative content.
That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, we're on Article
Yeah.
7.
Administrative, that's right.
It's under administrative, it's not under public.
I can have it for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
You're right,
it's
Deb, it's under
Administrative,
Mm-hmm.
so the public can't see that?
Right.
I
Okay,
can have it moved.
so just so
Can you
every,
move that? Are you able to move it?
we're gonna move that so that the public can see
Both of those.
The plan.
the articles that we're now voting on.
You have one last article, and it's Article 8, and that's the plan to start
No,
on.
I think
We-
got
we haven't done
7.
seven
Yeah,
yet.
just
Seven.
Oh,
7.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's okay. Appreciate the effort in moving this along.
Sorry. Well,
Okay,
it
so-
wasn't stapled, so I didn't want you to overlook it.
My only question on this is, do you need to add the other county health departments that you're collaborating with? We only have Monroe and Belmont. I mean, I thought earlier you referred to,
Well, we have students from there
so,
You're talking about Maryville.
in Washington.
Well,
I can make it plural by taking out the counties and work with the local health department.
okay. I mean, if you feel like, if you feel that working with Monroe and Belmont is sufficient, I'm fine with that. I just didn't, I don't want to make you
We'll
have to run
refer
around.
to Washington if we need, I mean, say there's a I'll break into Newmat or something like that, I mean.
Okay, well, if you're good with
Just
local,
leave it like it is.
or, yeah, you can, that doesn't stop you from reaching out, right? It's good, the way it is.
Did you say put local? No.
He said
just
leave it the
like
way
it
it is.
Okay.
Any other questions on 7?
You haven't moved?
It hasn't moved. I'll make a motion to
Oh.
accept it. I just didn't want to cut anybody off that had questions.
Second.
Voting is open.
That's it.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
All right, that concludes,
Yeah, you got Article 8.
I didn't see Article 8.
It's on the table, it's a single sheet.
It was an add-on.
Ah, thank you. Well, this kind of took care of itself when we said,
It's still, we just
we
got
have to go
that
through again.
Chair, this was to decide, even though we have those others in place, how do we want to start the beginning of the year? Do we want to be more cautious, or do we want to just start out with?
So I just was thinking that the color determines
Yep.
where we're at on the plan. So they determined that 100% is yellow and no public, so that dictated how we started. No?
Yeah.
Everybody check your levels on, Labor Day.
It'll change, but yeah,
Remember,
I
the levels
guarantee you, we
change in
spent
the middle of the
3.5
week.
hours, there'll be more changes coming up.
The levels change on Wednesday. So, bear in mind.
Okay. Mhm.
We need to do this meeting. I make a motion to accept option 1, model way 100% in person, start the school year.
Second.
Voting is open. Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
No. Motion carries. Now we're concluded with old business. I need a motion to adjourn to executive.
Is that what's up? Oh, it is.
So moved.
I think I have to state it for the record, Jerry.
Oh, I thought you
No,
Thank
did.
it was
you,
on
though.
the agenda.
Consider, I need a motion to adjourn to executive session for the consideration of the employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Jerry made the motion.
Second.
Ronald second.
They didn't do that.
Consent agenda.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. Type
Change by next week.
see you next.
And the color.
Oh, see, that happened to me.
I was sure the other day, they tested those 55 last week at the healthcare center, and they all come back negative. Yeah, the National Guard's been in for 3 hours.
I told you, we're along the river, the chemicals go.
It should just save on the thing.
The time limit for this recording. Oh, it's saving.
Okay, don't push nothing on saving.
I think it's, come look at it.
And we gave you one job to do and you're messing it up.
Hey, I did it last meeting. We didn't have an executive session. I didn't have to push
Okay,
it.
that sounds good.
It's not moving. There it is.
And now we're going.
Alright.
Why is it new category? Shouldn't it be new business?
I don't know. Yeah, okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Let the record show at 9:30, we reconvened into open session, and we are now at the personnel.
No.
It shouldn't be personnel?
No,
Oh,
we
no,
need new
sorry.
business.
Discussion and approval,
New
New business.
I don't know what it's called, new business.
yeah, new categories.
So, discussion and approval of interviewing process. So just wanted to put this on so we could get an idea of how our interview process is done and have some discussion.
Probably should have Cindy in here, but I can explain. Depending on what it's for, if we have a teaching position, we usually always try to, let that principal set up the interview committee. He may bring in, who's some of the people you use? You use teachers at times,
Yeah, I mean, if.
another administrator.
Yep. If it's a teacher, we usually try to get like a couple teachers to get their opinions, depending on the position, and at least one other administrator. We've always made that a practice, I think, as well.
And we always ask that you try to include at least one person from central office as well, whether that be me, Cindy, Larry, Jennifer, whoever might be available. Or sometimes even two, if he can't find some, you know, if he's having trouble finding other people. When we do administrators, it's usually when we're filling an administrator position, this usually is administration team, parts of that team, principals, just whoever has expertise in maybe that area from the admin team.
You don't use consultants, right?
We have,
Interview?
we had,
And they
a
ask
gentleman
questions.
set in, huh?
And he's asked the questions. And he asks the question too. He don't just observe this.
Mr. Ashley asked every question, he asked all of it.
Oh, yeah, that's what he was hired to do.
Yeah, but he was hired, to train.
Yeah.
So therefore, he would have the right to, ask a lot of questions. I agree with that. But you don't have nobody, other consultants interviewed?
Dan did once,
Dan
for,
Schroeder.
he was in on the,
Swiss Seals.
Swiss Hills Director's position. Yes.
And that's a practice we've always did in the past, or not?
That I can't answer, I don't think we, when Jeff Green, Mr. Green was here, I don't know if he used anybody else like that or not.
I don't know.
No, I'm the one that brought that up last meeting. And I just thought, like administration, something like that, one board member ought to at least sit in one or two,
On administrative,
Yeah,
I mean,
a board member.
personally, I feel, that gives us some kind of idea how when we're evaluating, say, Rob, Cindy, and Linda, and Connie, we have to evaluate all four of you now, so if a board member could sit in and watch how you evaluate, he has no comments to make or anything, but I don't see nothing wrong with him sitting there and watching how you interview.
Who leads the interview? When,
Who leads
like,
it?
Yeah, like if you're
Well, like,
interviewing.
the other day, Casey and I both was in on, those interviews, we just
Switch back and forth.
switch back and forth, alternate, and that's how we usually do it. If we have 5 people on the interview, committee, if we have 15 questions, okay, you got question 1, 2, 3, 4, Larry, you can attest to that. I mean, when we interview intervention specialists or aides or whoever.
Is the same questions asked to each interviewee?
If it's for the same
You've
position,
got a
yes.
list you put up and start.
Yes.
So, and I know, to be fair and consistent, that's probably, a good idea, but is that a legal thing? Like, if I'm interviewing you, Larry, and Casey, could I ask different questions to all 3 of you?
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes
There's nothing
even
that
with the
says-
questions that you have written down, somebody's response may lead you
Prompt more
to another
questions.
question that's not on the paper.
Right.
You can ask anybody any
Yeah,
question
yeah.
in an interview.
And do you create your questions with, I'm sure position to position they're different, but
Yeah.
like if you interviewed an intervention specialist last year, would you be asking them the same questions this year? Or each interview do you?
It might be different
Come
from
up
this
with
year to
them.
depending on, with the situation we're in now with
Right.
COVID, but, no, questions can change from year to year.
So why else do you feel like it would be beneficial, Jerry, to sit in on an interview? Because I know,
Well,
I hear
this
what
is
you're
more or
saying.
less, like if Rob's interviewing, I could see, I could kind of grade his interviewing process when I evaluate him. If I think, I think he's doing a good job, I'd say, well, he does a good job of interviewing. We're not here to see what he does every day, so we've got to have something that we can see Rob performing or doing. We just can't go by hearsay. I'd like to, sit and watch him. One day I'd like to come in the office and just see what he does every day. That way I can, when it comes time to interview, I can say, well, he's busier than heck, or he just sits around with his thumbs, twiddling. I mean, you hear
Yeah.
me and things, but unless you're there, I think a board member actually should shadow him one day of the year just to see what he does, He
And
tells me how
that,
great he does, but can I believe him or not?
We'll be on record here, we'll be on tape.
Oh, we don't take one.
yeah. And that was like when we evaluated Connie, that, it's almost impossible to
Yeah,
figure,
that's what I'm
have a
saying. You should come
general-
up and set a day with her to see what she does, because I have no clue,
Come on up.
Come up and visit her a day and sit around. She'll try to get dinner on me, so I'm not coming.
Dave,
Yeah,
I don't
say,
think, an evaluation, this interview is not like pulled out, like there's no specific, duties pulled out on, do you remember, Rob, on your evaluation? I think it's more of an overview of,
Yeah,
how,
how he performs in action, right.
well, there's different categories, I just can't remember.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
whole list of
And I
them.
don't think that they're that specific to one task, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So do you have a problem if a board member or two sits in?
Silently.
We set in on contract negotiations. What's the
Silently.
difference? Yeah, as long as you can't comment, you know, you sit there and listen. That's something I'm real good at.
I'm sorry.
We can go on, yeah.
My, I think this kind of goes along interviewing, hiring process. I'd like to see, like, when we hire people with a contract, I'd like to see the contract attached in the executive session part, in the executive content part. Yeah, so we can.
Rob, I don't know about the short, I know with teachers, we got to practice that we don't hire retirees unless we can't get nobody else to fill a position. How about in administrative, is that the same policy, or? I don't think there's nothing in policy.
There's no policy. No.
It's just a practice.
For practice.
Same way with administration, we don't hire nobody if they're retired unless we can't find nobody else.
No, we don't have a policy on it, so we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've hired teachers that are retired.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I thought that if we rehire them, we couldn't find nobody else for that position. That's the reason why.
Or, well, it's not that you can't find anyone else, you just can't find.
No, I'm saying, when you post a job and nobody bids it on it, it says, say you want to fill a position.
Oh, no one bids on it, no one
Yeah.
applies for it.
Yeah, that's when you could bring up somebody out of retirement.
Oh,
rehire.
right,
He could bring
yeah.
it back the first, he could bring a retiree
I
back the first day he
could bring that,
with
if I want to
30
interview, I can
candidates.
interview that retiree and
For,
still.
as a teacher?
Huh?
Yes.
For a teacher?
All they have to do is
I
lay
thought
it out,
we had a policy or something.
whatever STRS gives them as far as their retirement, if whatever they tell them, that they have to sit out and wait for 30 days, they have to start, on their side, can't work for 30 days, but after that, it's free.
30 or 60?
I don't know, I was
I think
just throwing that out
No,
there.
I thought it was 90 days
I was
on
throwing that
that.
out there, I don't
You
know.
sure need 90 days? I'm pretty sure
I don't
it's 90
know.
days.
That was a number I
It's a
threw out there.
generalization.
I was
I
just
just
doing the
think
situation.
I don't care if you
So-
hire a retiree or a brand new person, I want the best person for the job.
Ronnie, back forward, didn't you just make a policy where, something, not a policy, but a practice that you didn't hire
Yeah, we
unless you couldn't fill the position?
all we did is have a practice there.
Yeah, it's a practice, it's no policy. Is that what you're saying? Okay. I didn't find none in policies, I looked.
No, I just did a quick search too.
And then, I couldn't find nothing there for, but I thought we had a practice, but,
Yeah,
policy
we
supersedes
did.
it. That's what I thought.
Because how would a younger teacher get a job? You kept hiring that retiree back.
Right.
Everybody was had to
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
because there was,
I mean, you want to give those new ones and
Yeah.
young ones the opportunity, but.
at one time, I think there was hiring teachers that had retired before, and some of our young kids didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah,
They said,
we lost good ones, they moved away from here.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why they
Yeah.
kind of started that practice, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
That was before your time too, Rob, I believe.
Mhm.
Any other questions, observations? Interviewing? No one? You good, Jer?
Yeah, I'm good.
Greg?
I'm good.
Deb?
Yes.
I have to get back to the meeting.
Powhatan lease.
Okay, so the Powhatan lease is, the next item. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, it's just the house there we lease there next to the school property. Same her name? Shannon
Oh,
Rentala,
teaches at Bellsville.
teaches at Bellsville. She's wanting to release it
Yeah,
again.
I've seen that.
I'll make a motion, we accept it.
I second it.
Do you inspect the property, Rob, or?
I don't have a key to get in there. I mean, I was in there probably about a year and a half or so ago, right before she moved in. I know they have keys at Powhatan School, and I think Jason's been there. Jason's still in there?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
there.
When's the last time you've been down there?
I was there probably about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, Curtis lives right by it. I mean, last year, we had some concern last summer because we never saw anybody there for
Oh, my.
weeks at a time. So we ended up having to reach out to her, and here she was, wherever she's from, back home with her parents for a month or whatever, and we just wanted to make sure she was still safe.
Curtis mowed the grass, or?
I don't know.
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. So now we're on motion carries. Approval of resolution adopting a calamity day alternative makeup plan for 2021. I was thinking this is in policy. You guys do this every year? Maybe it's in
Yeah.
the handbook. Yeah.
Is that in a policy?
No.
You remember, you recall?
It might be in the handbook, maybe I'm thinking.
I just know it's
don't
something we have to approve every year.
We have to approve every year by July 31st.
Okay. Any questions or anything on the plan?
So moved.
Second.
Voting is open. Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes. Motion carries. We're done with our new category. Moving on to personnel. Is there anything need to be pulled out of personnel? Any questions on it?
I'll move we approve administrative.
Second.
Voting is open. Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Motion carries on administrative. Now we're on to certificated.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Voting is open. Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Motion carries. Brings us to supplementals. One's just correcting and
Yeah,
that's it, right?
yes.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
Voting is open. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Gus?
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries to correct the supplemental. And I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Voting is open. Mr. Gus?
Yes.
Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes,
Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
meeting adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you, Seth, for your help.
What we going back